Calling the Hollis School Board regular meeting on October 4th, 2023 to order. My name is Carol Roy. I am Vice Chair, and I'm standing in for Amy Kellner, Chair, who is absent this evening. First order of business, do we have any agenda adjustments, nominations, resignations, or correspondence?
We have none.
Thank you. Oh, check that one off. All right, and our next is approval of minutes for September 2023.
I move to accept the minutes of the Hollis School Board public meeting of September 6, 2023 with the following amendments. Page 4, line 5, replace HPS with HBHS. Page 4, line 18, replace has with had. Page 4, line 24, replace there to be with is. Page 6, line 19, replace affect with effect. Page 7, line 18, replace allowing with allow. Page 11, line 33, replace questions with question.
Second?
Second?
All in favor? Where's hers from? That is our only minutes there, so we can actually move into our presentations. We have our first one is going to be our administrative presentation on 2023 goals and objectives.
Carol, do you want to be our
I sure can.
button mover? You page mover? Thank you.
I don't think I got this in order anymore.
All right. First slide. You go. Thank you.
Welcome to our 2023-24 school year presentation for the Hollis administrative team. So first of all, we wanted to share new staff that has joined us this year. We have quite a bit. Gail Elwood is our new front office secretary. We have some new classroom teachers. Serena Mahoney took the, we have a second grade teacher this year, so that is Serena Mahoney. Bridget Phillips is a third grade teacher who took Michelle O'Brien's position when Michelle O'Brien took over our new administrator, Sarah Prue's position. So there was a little trickle effect there, but a very good trickle effect system. Catherine Bodette is our long-term sub right now. She is subbing for Ray Lord, who is actually going to be returning shortly. And Catherine's actually going to go back into a paraprofessional position for us, so we're excited that she's still staying with us. We had like a lot of SLP and SLA hires this year.
Could you tell us what those mean?
I'm sorry.
Yes, SLP.
Spell
Oh.
out SLP and SLA is what she was asking.
Speech language pathologist and speech language assistant. Sorry. Our team is Shannon Matthews, Carrie Bowen, and Julia Fothergill. And Pam Mullins is our new school psychologist. Gloria Jugnavis is one of our paraprofessionals. Radhika Inaklu is another paraprofessional. We do still have a couple paraprofessional positions open. We do have one in process right now and to be hired, and we actually are hoping to have an interview on Friday. So we're still in process and things are still moving along, so that's really good, but we feel really excited and happy about who we have right now and our team moving forward. And And then, as you know, there was a little bit of summer work here at HPS over the summer. And I can't thank everybody enough for the hard work. Even Mr. Corey was here the day before school moving stuff and helping us, sweating alongside us just to get everything ready for the kids to come in. It was disappointing in some regards. You know, I had to do a Zoom for our new student orientation for kindergartners and for new students in general, but to have them come in and see a building that was just disheveled wouldn't have been the kind of bit we want them to come into a happy, clean building. So I just kudos to the construction team that did everything from our custodial crew to our front office secretary, Stephanie Sayre, was super helpful with even just filling up the toilet paper rolls in the new bathrooms, like on the night before, just to make sure that everything was really ready to go. And it was like we shut the closet door with some stuff and opened up the door for the kids to come in. But it looked beautiful when it opened, and the work that is continuing to be done downstairs, we have 2 bathrooms that are still being done. They're doing a great job being as discreet, out of the way, letting us know ahead of time when things are going on. But our 3rd grade floors went in great. The bathrooms are awesome. Sinks in the 1st grade bathrooms. There was just so much work, and the kitchen looks beautiful. And I know you guys are going to be coming in as a group to see the Zero Waste program and kind of get a little tour of the kitchen.
To do that tour, so thank you for the invitation. So Paula, I'll just say that you did a fabulous job, because the only thing the kids at the upper elementary school thought was wrong with the primary school was like, did you hear Mrs. Fowler? What's going on at the primary school? No, what's going on? They don't have pizza day. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right, that is a tragedy. It's my favorite day. So really kudos to you. They didn't talk about the bathrooms or the floor. And there wasn't pizza day for a couple of weeks.
We announced pizza day.
I was like, okay, yes, I'll make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. I think you all know me. I'm Candy Fowler, principal at the upper elementary school. I'm excited to talk about the 23-24 school year. It's really amazing that we're already a month into that. It's been working and going very smoothly. We welcome 7 new professional staff. We have a grade 4 teacher, Laura Bluen, who came to us over the summer, and Angela Lebreck, who just came to us. Today's day number 3 for her, and so we're excited and welcoming her. She's doing a great job. We have Allison Beatty, who's a new case manager, Megan Chevrafil, who goes by Miss Chevy. So if you ever hear that, she's taken over Mr. Williamson's PE job and doing a really fantastic job. Cheryl Craig, technology, working with us under a year-long long-term sub position. We have Julia Fothergill, who is also at the primary school. She's our speech language assistant, and Erin Kiley, who's our new math support teacher. So everything's still meshing really well. We are looking for 1 special ed support staff member, and Sarah and her team are working really hard to find that for us, but we're in a really good spot right now. Like Paula said, probably the best spot we've been in for the last few years with regards to openings. We did welcome 14 new students this year, and you can see the 4th graders, the 5th graders, and the 6th graders. We still are experiencing a little bit of movement. Some students are moving because their parents found a house or they're moving for jobs, but for the most part, I think we are pretty much settled with our enrollment. And at Hughes, not as much work as Paula, for sure. I know that first picture you see, what's that thing? That is Air Handler 3. Hey! I'm glad there's some clapping. If you're wondering why there's clapping, it's because Air Handler 3 has been on order for 2-3 years, and it finally got delivered.
And in conversation for longer than that.
Very much a longer conversation. So we're still continuing work, because once you put it in, you have to connect all the vents, you have to connect the piping, all of that. But it's on the roof, it's there, it's working, so things are good. And then we've had a drainage issue for quite a while at the bottom of Drury, or at the top of Drury Lane, but at the bottom of the parking lot at the upper elementary school. There's this little river, or actually a brook, or whatever we call it here. And when it rains, it washes away a little bit of Drury Lane. It washes away a little bit of Drury Lane. So Brew Landscaping came in to help us with drainage. They dredged everything out. They put a lot of rocks, retaining, so nothing's moving. So that's underneath the Drury Lane at the top of our driveway. And then what you see on the bottom is drainage around the corner from the gym. So of course, when water comes rushing down that hill, path of least resistance, it's going around that retaining wall, and there was like a giant ditch there. So the rocks are there now. We've had lots of rain, as you know. It still seems to keep raining every weekend, and so we haven't had any washouts there. So that's good. Eventually, grass will grow over that, but it's been really great. So anyway, not as big as the HPS, but Air Handler 3. Right? Yeah, we should have known that, right?
Hi, I'm Abby Diaz, and I'm the curriculum administrator here at the primary school, and I also work up at Hughes. We have lots going on with curriculum. It's been a really, really busy start to the year. We, as a district, are focusing on math for the 2023-2024 school year. And we got to start off the year with OGAP training. This was a really high quality, excellent training for all teachers, K to 6. For K to 2, the training focused on addition, and for the 3 through 6 group, it's focused on multiplication. This training is great because it applies to any math curriculum that you use. It's talking about best practices for teaching and assessing. And in addition to the 2 days at the beginning of the school year, we will continue throughout the school year with the training, and so the trainers are going to come back and visit us, so that way that teachers will have it at the forefront of their mind so that we can continue focusing on math throughout the school year. We're also looking at piloting 2 new math programs. We're looking at Eureka Squared and Illustrative Math. We'll be doing that this fall. And we've had volunteers K through 6 who are interested in participating. Teachers are very excited. And we're working on this with Brookline. So having lots of collaborative discussions on what we're looking at going forward for math. Also,
Can I just ask a quick question? Sorry for the interruption, Abby.
That's
What
okay.
is OGAP? Is that a brand? Is that a
Sure, it
acronym?
means Ongoing Assessment Program, and that's
Okay.
the name of their group. And it's a bunch of wonderful math leaders who are experts in the field that work with districts. They offer trainings throughout the summer as well, so if you wanted to go and participate on your own, you could. But Gina was able to get them to come to us and work on it throughout the school year. So we're really, really lucky to have them. A few teachers had already gone prior, and they came back saying how great it was and what a great professional development opportunity it was. So we're very lucky that our whole staff got to be involved in the OGAP training for this year.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So does that have to do,
No, you.
does that have to do with implementing like informal formative assessments? Is this a summative assessment program or based on standards? Like what, when you say an ongoing assessment, what does that
Yeah,
necessarily
so
mean?
it's looking at what you're teaching and finding little mini assessments that you use kind of along the way to help inform your instruction, and looking at best teaching practices as well. And so
Is
the
there pedagogy involved?
it is both. Yep. And so that was what the 2-day training was around. And now teams are looking at what assessments they're going to be using in their classrooms. Quick mini assessments to give some detailed background on what kids are learning and what they're able to do. And then they're going to be bringing that to a meeting in October with the OGAP trainer to analyze that assessment and talk about next steps moving forward. Thank you for your questions. Another thing that we're doing around math is emphasizing support for classroom teachers and Tier 1 instruction. So we have wonderful math specialists. One is here with us this evening, who is going to be going into classrooms at HPS and supporting teachers in what they're learning. So really emphasizing strong Tier 1 instruction there. Another place we're working on is phonics at HPS, and we've been using the Foundations program for many years, but we realized with some new teachers in the building and new staff, we wanted to make sure that people are having training. So we've been offering Foundations training, and a lot of teachers have taken advantage of it. So that's been great to see. And we've also added Foundations for our 3rd grade students as well. Previously it was just really K2. But we want to make sure that students are solid in their phonics as they move forward into more content reading in the upper elementary grades. We also have our reading specialists pushing in to support classroom teachers, especially during Foundations time. They're modeling lessons, supporting teachers, and then with 3rd grade, because it's newer to the 3rd grade teachers, they've been assisting them with their implementation as well. Another place we're looking at is adding more enrichment opportunities. Up at Hughes, we use Wing Time, which is what I need groups. A lot of students during that time might be getting extra help. They might be working with a special ed case manager. They might be getting extra help with reading or with math. But we also, this year, really wanted to focus on students offering some enrichment opportunities. So we've been using some data to look at students who would really benefit from those opportunities, and so they're going to be working on math enrichment, some reading enrichment with our librarian, focusing on doing some research projects, and also our computer tech person is going to do some looking at some projects as well for science enrichment. So very, very busy. Here at the primary school, we've started after-school clubs. There's nature clubs. There's going to be some robotics clubs, art clubs, music clubs, lots of opportunities for students. As you know, last year we talked about the new environmental science program that was going to be starting at Hughes, and it's been great seeing the students and seeing the science lab, which has been transformed from kind of a storage type space into a really exciting classroom with lots going on. Already this year, fourth graders have been learning about fossil fuels and energy, renewable and non-renewable resources. Fifth grade students have been looking at plants and talking about structure and pollination. And sixth grade students have been learning about ecosystems and biomes and what happens when ecosystems are disrupted. So there's already tons of exciting things happening with the new environmental science program. Thanks, Abby.
Hi, I'm Sarah Brew. I'm the special ed administrator at HPS and Hughes. And these are some of our special education goals. One of them is, the first one is to welcome families back into the building for in-person meetings. So all of our special ed meetings were on Zoom. I much prefer in-person meetings, and it's nice, but we still offer the Zoom as an option for parents because with schedules and things it's difficult. But it's been nice to have parents back in the building, meeting in person, sitting around the table. Sometimes it's a lot easier to read just like, social cues, get a feeling for, and also to have parents come into the building to visit who haven't been able to come in for much of their child's school career. I would say the biggest thing is our second one, which is supporting and retaining really skilled paraprofessionals. Like Candy mentioned, we're looking for another paraprofessional at the upper. We have a few spots open at the primary right now, and we've been working really hard to interview. We've been really lucky this year, knock on wood. We found some great paraprofessionals so far. We've hired a few already, and we're trying to fill those few empty spots. I know Gina's been working on the mentoring program, and one of the ways is to add a para-mentor. So we have a para-mentor at the building level so that paras can come and have someone to connect with, because oftentimes they start and it's like they're just starting that day and they're jumping into a role that they've never been in, or so we're trying to give them that day of sort of lead time to observe, visit the classrooms, get to know the teachers, find out all the just basic things like time cards and how to sign in and sign out, where to go, even just touring the building. And that's worked out really well with the new paras that we've had this year so far that have come in after the school year has started. Also with like the increase in needs we have with intensive needs pre-K and intensive needs K-3, we do need really skilled people to stay and help grow the program. So that's been really beneficial. Working together as a team with families as we're moving through the process and finding the best supports for students. So working at the building levels for RTI and other processes before we move towards the special education process, and making sure parents understand that we're supporting their students in any way that we can and working as a group, which is really important. And Paula and Abby and Candy and I have been talking about focusing on inclusion. So making sure the students that are in different programs within the school are still coming into the classroom. They are part of the general education classroom. That's been a big push this year, making sure they're included in, even simple things like classroom celebrations, open house, coming into the lunchroom, getting kids to, mingle and become friends and have social opportunities, because we want them to be part of the classroom and part of the school, even though sometimes they need special services at other times. So that is something we're continuing to work on. I know they're doing at Hughes, we're doing some cross grade level buddies, which would be a great opportunity for all kids to meet other kids and for the students here to go to the upper to see where they're going to be heading for school in the next few years. So there's been some really great things already happening with some students, and just like really getting out of the classrooms and working together. So there's been some nice progress so far.
Thank you, Sarah. And for the folks who are watching live and who will watch the recording, if you recognize Sarah, it's because she used to be the librarian here at HPS and then transitioned into the special education role. So don't be alarmed. No. It is still her. It's still that's still here.
Yeah, I still like books. Yeah.
So talking about building goals this year, one of our big goals that was kind of spearheaded by Abby through just experience she had with her children, and Candy and I both jumped on board, was a buddy system. So we've connected classrooms across grade levels, and we've connected them across the building. So we're kind of taking inclusion and we're trying to spread it not just within our own, not even just within students, just to be welcoming and to know and to understand each other, but across buildings and with staff. So making sure that if we are grabbing, a buddy class and we're going to do something, maybe we're grabbing some paraprofessionals, maybe we're inviting a specialist to go with us, maybe we're, inviting an administrator to go with us. So we're trying to, take those barriers and really just try to make connections. And with students, we're trying to make those connections with different grade levels to help, on buses and, all those other parts of the day where we're not always around, but maybe they're connecting with another child and maybe they'll see them at the soccer field and make that connection because they know each other from being a second grader and a fifth grader. So we're sort of taking this big umbrella approach. Paraprofessionals is something that we are really working hard on. I know Sarah has a few ideas that she's doing. I am, as part of my CAGS program that I am in right now, this is my problem of practice. It's something that I'm focusing on this year for my study as well. But it's just really, our paraprofessionals are just so important to us, and they are skilled people who need to feel value and be part of everything that everybody else is part of. So we're working on, Sarah has been really good at making sure that monthly meetings are being held with them and those are being stuck to. We are, taking time to have paraprofessionals be welcomed into the building when they come in, even though it's like for the first time in the middle of the year. We do have that mentor in our building that is helping, and just making sure that we find different ways. So we're exploring other options, but they are a huge part of our team that we need to make sure feels like part of our team. Safety is another focus this year. Obviously, it's our focus every year, but as part of the grander plan, we are all planning to do a reunification plan, and so a reunification drill. So one of the things that we'll be doing this year is having a reunification, and it'll be very well thought out. It'll be planned out. People will know. We will make sure that parents know when all of that is happening. I was lucky enough to observe the entire thing and actually, filmed a little bit of it for RMMS, and it was it was great. The kids got out of the building, they walked down, a couple parents came and actually went through the process to retrieve their kids, which was done well, just, for some feedback to make sure that things are going to work the way we think they are. So this summer I met with the entire safety team, all the chiefs, town manager, everybody. Showed them our safety plan and what we plan to do for reunification. They thought it was really good. I was very happy to hear that. And there were a couple of things that we did to help connect us even more. But I feel really good about where we are at that point. And then last but not least, this is a little bit of a change, but like a good change. But our guidance counselor, our nurse, and Officer Cush have always been part of that ultimate wellness, body, mind, everything, and just trying to make sure that we're safe. And with our increase in enrollment, it's a little more difficult for our nurse to go in and teach every single class when there are kids lined up and we get a Colorado class. And, for our guidance counselor, the amount of 504 she's maintaining and being able to do things that actually make sense. So last year we went through the steps and we just kept meeting and discussing, and this year we decided to take an approach of the counselor is still going in and teaching classes, the nurse is still going in and teaching classes, Officer Cush is still going in and teaching classes, but they're doing it a little more strategically. So they're not going in every single day, every single week, or once a month and things like that. They're doing it strategically to make sure that it is part of a whole understanding of what we're trying to do. Mrs. Turner's has herself a little bit more available during times where she can teach those social interactions where they matter most, like at lunchtime, like at recess time. So she's not planning a class and sitting and reading a book to a class when she can be out at recess and watching kids interact and then saying, hey, remember we learned this and this is how this interaction goes. So which is something that she's very passionate about in doing, because we can drill it all we want, but once they go and play, it doesn't necessarily always click, and they need that repetitive teaching. So they've collaborated on that, and they're also going to bring in more resources from outside. Like last year, our first time we did Delta Dog, and the kids absolutely loved it, and hearing from somebody different and kind of having that little wow factor really helps. So they're working on that as well. Right now, they're planning the food drive, and we're talking about helping out our community and things like that. So they're all part of that. I know Candy's going for her goals. I just want to say at the end of this, I am scooting out really quick, and I don't want to be rude, but my son's being inducted into Tri-M tonight, and so I have time. But I just want to let you know when we're done and I scoot, it's not because it's just because I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Congratulations to your
Yeah,
son.
yeah,
You definitely have to do that. So one of the things that Paula already talked about, which I won't repeat, is that growing connections in the cross buddies. As a classroom teacher myself, I had a great experience with first graders and fourth graders. It just expanded into a lot of different areas of their lives besides just the classroom. So we're excited to do that, and we did strategically, make those study buddies or cross buddies so that kids could come up and see our fourth grade building a lot more times than just a couple as we work on transitions. So that's one thing we're going to be doing. We are very focused around building our programs around the enrichment, focused activities during wing time, being very strategic of, it's 30 minutes 4 times a week is what I need groups. And many times students definitely have things they need to work on, but other times they're already finished with their work, and so what do we do? So looking at our experts like our math support teacher, our librarian, our computer teacher, in your field of expertise, it's not hard for you to think of enrichment. It might be hard for me if I'm the classroom teacher because I'm working on everything, but this is what you do all day. And so they have designed some really amazing things. Kids are going twice a week, so we have so many students who were able to provide enrichment for. So we couldn't just say, here's one group. So we needed to make 2 really big groups, and they go. So it's really fun. We've been incorporating more safety procedures and practices into our daily routines. Every year I'm here, and you think, oh, why didn't I think about that 4 years ago? Or why didn't we do that? So this year we are not allowing our carpool students to go outside. There's like 100 to 110 of them every day. And they're very well behaved when they were outside. But if anything bad would happen, intruders, a car that shouldn't be there at carpool time, we're just not going to know that. There's just hundreds of cars out there. So we are adding that other layer of safety. So kids are being dismissed only when their cars are there, and we're checking. And so that feels really good. And we're working out all those kinks. So just every time we think about something, another new practice, how does that really work in reality? And I have to say that the teachers are really taking a leadership role in that for me, because they've got a lot more ideas than I do. And I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing now. They just tell me, and we're trying it. And it's really fun to see that empowerment around, hey, we all own the safety of our building, right? So that's been great and really working well at the upper.
We're looking forward to school year. So a couple of things that are going on. So Zero Waste, Mrs. Happy has started going into lunches. She's already talked about it in class, and students are already separating their things out. It's just really cool to see. You'll get to see it yourself and enjoy it. Our art show book fair, we tried it last year. It was a huge hit. After the long line to get in the awesome, cool room, we have a little bit of a change, new ideas so that everybody's able to kind of move a little more freely. Student-led opportunities, one thing our guidance counselor is really passionate about too is really, releasing that lead over to the students, and how do we help them become leaders in the things that they want to be. So we're just trying to give more opportunities for students to lead the school. Our OGEP math practices, again, the training teachers couldn't say enough of how great it was. And it's just really like, how do we get more time to get this stuff going? But we have some really good plans laid out for the year for them to come back and for it to be a focus. And I think that's really appreciated by the professionals, because it's not just a one hit and done. It's we're coming back and doing this, and then while OGAP is not there, they're still talking about that at their PLC. So they still have an opportunity during the week to be able to do that. And then our after school clubs. It's just been really something that's been empowering to our teachers, that they are able to sort of take their passion and offer some things, and be able to, and for parents to be able to have an opportunity to sign their kids up for what they're passionate about. So it's been really fun seeing the kids, you know, try and play new instruments or doing some art fun thing, or, you know, they're out digging the weeds with Mrs. Happy in the front. So it's been a really great start, and all of this stuff that's coming up is going to be real fun, and we're looking forward to it.
Well, we're looking forward to growing our wings, right? We continue to do that. That's we just had wing awards last week, and had to give out over 45 wing awards. It's really exciting to see that for our students. How are they growing academically, behaviorally, socially? And like looking at, you own this building. This is your, you know, family away from your family. How do we make it amazing? And they really are taking the challenge. So we have food recycling going on as well. Mrs. McElroy, our new environmental science teacher, is leading that and has a great plan, working with all the kids, and we will be starting next week. We have tiny business programs. So if you haven't heard of the tiny business program, you might want to listen up. We had a student last year who had this idea that, you know, Mrs. Fowler, lots of kids want to own their own business, and I think we should have a practice of that. And that little idea, along with mentorship from Abby Donnelly, who's our librarian, has grown into the Tiny Business Program, which we are inviting students with parent support to have a small business at the upper elementary school. Nothing can be over $5. You sell it at recess time. You sign up for a month. And then 50% of your profits go into a donation. So we'll be working for Delta Dogs, because the kids loved that and they want to keep supporting the dogs. And there are so many cute things that are coming up. So it should be starting in November. We have to have teachers out there who can monitor the selling. We have to have recess monitors who let kids in to do shopping. All of those things have to be worked out, but we're slowly getting there, and kids are very excited about being tiny business owners. And the latest was, can we have a conglomerate? No, we're not going to have a conglomerate. But yeah, so really great things. Yeah, they're like, can 5 of us go together? We're like, no more than 3. How about 4? So, yep, they're on their way. Student-led opportunities, student council will be back. I've just had a chance to listen to student speeches and how brave they're being by standing up in front of their classes, and talking about, you know, voting for me and why I'm responsible. So that's also led by Abby Donnelly, and she works really, really hard. Every day this week she's dressed up in her red, white, and blue for, you know, voting, and it's been great. She gives the kids little things. So I was like, it was wonderful. We do have our OGAP math strategies, as you've heard from Paula and Abby, that we are focused on what are those best practice strategies, and we know you can't just hear it once. You need to hear it many times, and you have to practice it many times. And then we are still focused on collaborative teams. So how do we work together as a group in our individual grade levels? How do we work together as a school community and a team? And then how do we broaden that with our HPS friends here to make sure that when your children are going through their K through 6, it's not seeming like a different universe every time they switch grades. So really trying to work and looking forward to that this year. All right. Any questions? I think we're done, right? That's our last slide.
I was like, nothing's moving.
Yeah, that's our last slide.
Broken.
Grow your wings, our last slide. So we'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
I don't have any questions, gang. Any questions? This is one of my favorite meetings of the year to kind of see how everything goes. Paula, congratulations again to your son. Thank you for being here. No apologies. Go, go, go. Mom time. Because we like to hear what's going on. I hear it from my kids. I know my fellows hear it from theirs. But to hear kind of your perspective of what you're doing in the background to push that forward is really important. So thank you so much for being here tonight. All right. Our next one is technology being a one-to-one district presentation. So we'll invite Carol over. I think we're going to swap the display. Do you need me to click, or are you good with the?
I'm good. I'm just gonna.
All right.
This cord is long enough. We're all set.
Yes, so she's on the SAT.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everybody. See you soon. Is it up? Is it down? It's like a USB when you're like up it 6 times in each direction.
Alright, so
Cool.
let's see. There we go.
Sorry, I thought it was feeding directly with the.
It's not. Let me see if I can just touch.
There we go.
Go back one. No? It's okay. We'll just do it this way. Yep. Well, good evening. Now I'm ready. Carol Tyler, Director of Technology for the school district. And I'm here to present our budgeting recommendations and plan moving forward for our one-to-one student device initiative. So as you may know, as you may know, we became a one-to-one device district in 2022-23 officially. Before that time, 2021, to 2022, we gave devices to any student or parent who requested one. So that was a partial rollout, and then last school year was our official start of one-to-one.
And was that due to the remote learning during that year? Is that what kind
That
of
was
kicked us off?
that was the year after COVID, and where we scrambled for devices for any student when we went remote for a while. And then at that same time, emergency connectivity funds became available from the federal government, and we applied for those, and we received a grant, and we purchased 450 that year, and then we purchased another 500 the following year. So over the past 6 months, we've been looking at researching the best options to continue our student access to digital tools and curriculum with the one-to-one device program, because in the next 3 to 4 fiscal years, more than half of our inventory will need to be replaced from those devices we bought way back when. All right. So why is one-to-one important? As we near 2024, digital resources and curriculum aren't just enhanced learning opportunities, they're really becoming the norm. We have more and more textbooks that are moving to online curriculum only. The only way to get those textbooks now is through a digital learning platform. We also have, in addition to expanding our digital literacy skills, one-to-one devices enables teachers to create customized learning plans and paths that can be delivered via a digital platform, and that gives students more effective and personalized learning experiences. All right. So other benefits in SAU, just aside from why it's good for any district to have it, our student Chromebooks are managed at the building level, meaning each of our building techs can give students easy access, assign, reassign when those students enroll or transfer in, transfer out, and then we have end user tech support in every building. Each building also has a dedicated student Chromebook Wi-Fi network. So that was started last year, and what's great about that is that it is dedicated just to those individual student Chromebooks. No other devices can connect to that network. It automatically connects those student issue devices, and it is has filtering and firewall rules that help us comply with SIPA, because anything that we have over our network and internet, if we receive federal funds for that internet, we have to have firewall rules in place. Also, all required state testing, we talked about assessment, are online only. So we need a one-to-one device at any given time on testing day.
Can I interrupt you super quick?
Sure.
Because I can hardly believe what you said.
Each building has its own student Chromebook network.
That's
Yep.
spectacular. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, looking to the future, we need to build a sustainable plan. As I said, in 3 fiscal years, more than half of our inventory will be gone. So, as of July 1 of this past year, our inventory was 2945. Now, obviously, we don't have that many students, so we
also gave Chromebooks or issued Chromebooks to every parent in the district, which we had never had them have the opportunity to have a device. So they have a similar device to what the students have. Now, out of that 2945, on June 30th of the end of the school year, 435 of those are end of life. They cannot take updates anymore. They're no longer usable for testing or any other purposes because they can't get updates. All right, without any additional purchases, their inventory starting July 1st then gives us just over 2,500 devices. Then by July of 2026, we will only have 800 if we didn't purchase any more right now. That doesn't include changes to student enrollment, and it doesn't include damaged, missing, or destroyed devices. So we have a lot of work to do to get back our inventory levels to where they need to be. So over this last 6 months, we had a lot of considerations that we went through, and I've just highlighted some on this slide here. Some factors we considered in our budgeting plan included the need for sustained level of funding. We can't have a year where we buy 1,600 devices and then another year where we don't. We also looked at the wear and tear issues from students carrying their Chromebooks around, back and forth, home and back, and then at the co-op, to 7 or 8 classes a day. So functional use of the device versus the end of life date are not the same thing. At the end of the 2022-23 school year, we recycled 75 Chromebooks, put them on a truck that were still perfectly good, not end of life because they were no longer usable. In addition to that, we had 128 breakage reports where we had to replace something on the device. Trackpad issues, battery, new batteries, broken screens, water damage, that sort of thing. So some more stats about that. For replacement parts that we purchased and then put in devices just last school year, 80 screens, 50 trackpads, 25 keyboards or faceplates, and 20 batteries. So that's a lot of devices that are not keeping up with their end of life. Another consideration is staffing. Each Chromebook, from the time it comes in a box until it can go in a student's hands, takes at least 30 minutes. So we need staffing over the summer to help get all those devices in the student hands. If we bought 1,600 in 1 year, we don't have the staffing that can support that. All right, so based on all those factors, we have a recommended plan, and basically we recommend that we have a 4-year replacement cycle. Now that could be reconsidered for Hollis to maybe a 5-year replacement cycle, but we won't have the data to determine that until the end of this school year because we only have 1 year of data so far, and that's last year.
So is that just because it doesn't get as heavy use as it does with the older kids?
Right. So K to 1 to 3 students don't take their devices home very often. 4 to 6 a little more. I was at CSDA this morning in a classroom, a 6th grade classroom, and there were probably 6 devices that weren't taken home. So more than half were going home in 6th grade. So it is a graduated, back and forth based on student use homework requirements for those older grades. Okay. The more it goes home, the more chance for damage. The more it leaves. Every classroom has a cart or a stand that those Chromebooks stay in, but the second they're out, anything from putting a pencil in the Chromebook and closing it will break a screen. We also have an issue where the very first Chromebooks we bought were of inferior quality, and those are not holding up. And those are part of the 2026 end of life cycle. So those were other factors we had to consider. So this is our recommended plan. If you look at FY24, we bought 420 Chromebooks. We proposed to buy 420. We've been buying fewer than that. This past year we spent $36,000 per district, and we're looking to go to 55 for the next 3 years to get us up to that critical year, which is FY27 to FY28, to get our inventory back. Let's see. So our plan isn't really changing drastically. We've had Chromebooks in the budget every year since 2021. So this is just increasing it in order for us to sustain long-term a plan. And then there's also an option for revenue. We have a very conservative estimate of $30 per Chromebook. If we do have Chromebooks that are sellable and usable, we can generate revenue from that to help offset our budgeting costs. So I think that's about it, unless you have questions or anything that you want to add, Gina.
So I just want to say that we did look at just about every possible scenario. We looked at leasing options, we looked at insurance options, but it really came down to more of the functional use. And some of those devices, while it appears as though end of life is FY26, they really just weren't lasting. And so we're trying to collect better data, especially at the elementary, to see if is it 4, is it 5, but it's definitely not the 6 or 8 that it might say. Now, if you have one device in your home and it's not traveling and you own it, it might be protected differently than if it was a school-issued device. It's going between all classrooms, including physical education.
And a backpack.
And a backpack, in and out. And, another factor to consider is the type of work that's being asked of the students in a 10th grade class compared to a 2nd grade class. And so that also changes sort of what type of Chromebook is needed and if, how robust it is. As we mentioned, we purchased what we didn't know at the time to be a lesser quality Chromebook because it was the cheaper option. We were trying to provide enough devices for all families when needed, especially during that option of some were remote, some were in person, but they're just not holding up. And so while we were planning all of this and reviewing devices and trying to deploy them, we're realizing that our supply was actually smaller than the numbers showed, our usable supply. So we really needed to go to a better plan sooner. And so beginning that purchase is essentially 1/4 of the devices every year. Just allows for that level funding. It's incorporated into the budget. We're not looking, as we showed in our round 1, to potentially have the expendable trust. We're not looking to do that anymore. We're just looking for it to be level funded in the budget. But understand that this is a replacement cycle, and then we'll evaluate our supply on hand, sell if need be, put on the recycle truck if need be, or
We just need a sustainable for not just 3 years from now, but 13 years from now. So this was the plan that we recommended. So if you want to look at that slide again, it levels off between FY27 and FY28.
Well, first, this looks like a tremendous amount of work and a tremendous amount of research. So thank you for doing this. I think that especially like middle and high school, like there's no question how much that's needed. Talking about elementary students, though, particularly grades 1 to 3, I would imagine, you mentioned something about a graduated, more responsibility, more time home, etc. I guess one of my questions is, you may not have the answer right now, but is it really necessary to have one-to-one at the primary level? What justifies that with any kind of research or evidence-based, data that improves student outcomes, as opposed to our technology teacher coming in with a cart and having a technology lesson with the students? I guess that's what I'm not clear on.
So we don't really have a technology teacher that comes in with a cart anymore. It's really integrated into all the lessons. It's not just that you go to the computer lab. We don't have that. That doesn't exist anymore in that form. It's really how to apply the technology skills to all the curricular areas. You'll find out in an update I have that we are required to do testing beginning in kindergarten, and that does require
Kindergarten.
The dyslexia testing, right?
Oh, the dyslexia testing.
Yeah,
I thought
and
you
so
meant
that
the
requires a one-to-one.
assessment, I'm like,
And then the
what?
state assessment
That
begins in 3rd
requires a
grade.
computer
It
for
does.
dyslexia?
Well, all that eyeball stuff,
Okay.
And so, it's not if you go into, and I believe, did you maybe reach out to Paula?
I did. Neither was able to get back to me yet. I did.
Okay.
Today, Ms. Fowler and I secured a date.
Okay.
Still waiting.
On Paula, yep. So she and I were at a conference today, at a law conference, and we were talking about it. And I think if you were to observe how it's utilized, it'll clarify what that looks like. It's not, okay, everybody take out your Chromebook. We're gonna, do something that could be on paper, but instead we're gonna do it on a device. It's really more station-based. So this small group is working with a teacher on a targeted skill that they have and that they're working on. This group is doing an activity that's hands-on. This group over here is doing a different activity that might utilize a Chromebook. There are read aloud options for students who need access to texts but don't have the same ability to read the same text. So there's just so many different ways that it's integrated without it being, we're just on screens, because we absolutely are not on screen. So there's
What about,
There is, he was hitting on me earlier too.
Yeah, they've been.
Popping
What
on my
about
screen.
training for teachers? So among the considerations, of course, there's staffing for the hardware, but what about training for teachers on the educational programs that are available to them and how to implement them in the classroom? When are those trainings taking place?
So
and
most of
how they
those
rolled
are
out?
directed by the teachers. They have the interest, and so they sign up for various trainings or take the time to understand how to integrate it, and then they become the teacher leader. Not this year because OGAP is sort of taking over all of our training days, but typically in November, that professional development day is a day where the entire SAU gets together and individual teachers propose workshops on how to utilize X or how to plan this or whatever it is that they're passionate about. They can put forward a proposal, and then teachers around the entire district can sign up and learn from their peers, because it's that much easier to learn from someone who's down the hall or the building up the street, and then know that when you're in the classroom, you're trying to implement it, you have that connection. It's not someone who, a presenter at a workshop that you'll never be able to talk to again. For all of our new teachers, one revamping of the mentor program was that throughout the year, there are 30-minute professional development, either Zoom or in-person sessions that are on all of the programs that we utilize, so that as we bring in new staff, they are provided that training to understand how we use this tool in SAU 41, because it might be different from another district if they have experience elsewhere.
Carol, you mentioned their devices are experiencing damage. Are we seeing that it's device failure or user inflicted mostly?
It's a combination. Definitely the first devices we bought back in 2020 and 2021.
Just device failure.
Device failure, trackpad issues, batteries, but anything that's relatively new, like the most recent version of the Chromebooks we bought has you can spill a cup of water on it. Shouldn't
No, you can't.
It has protection against that. Those are holding up better, but the biggest issue is screens and students putting anything in it, and unintentional, intentional, you close it and the screen breaks. So that's the biggest. The screens are by far the biggest issue, and we can replace them in a lot of cases, but other times there is intentional damage. Absolutely. I was at the high school 2 weeks ago in the tech office, and within 1 hour, I had 2 Chromebooks come to me broken. That was in 1 hour and 1 day, both screens. And those students have to have that device. It's part of their curriculum, like Gina was talking about. There's textbooks online. Our 7th grade social studies is completely online now. The only way to access that curriculum is with a device.
May as well get used to it, because there are no more college textbooks. It's all
Right.
online.
Yep. So
So do you think that, with all that said, that
I do. Yep.
Okay.
That is the norm in New Hampshire. Whether you start at grade 1 or grade 2 or 3, that is up for discussion. And some districts start at grade 3, but most start at grade 1.
If we
Yep.
were to start at grade 3, to Anne's questions, how might that impact our state testing?
So you would still have to have the device.
Right.
You still have to have an inventory somewhere, because for testing they're going to need something. So it
But in
would
terms of-
it would be more complicated for sure.
Possible.
And logistic logistics wise. We still have to have the
Well, I was
inventory.
thinking more of the student performance on the tests.
Yeah, so I just want to
with
clarify,
respect to their
state
computer
testing
skills.
begins in grade 3, but other types of more local assessments that we do begin in kindergarten. But, you know, the big concern with the first time way back when we switched to smarter, balanced,
Right.
computer adaptive was, are they going to understand how to manipulate the screens? And now it's New Hampshire SAS. It's not necessarily intuitive. Doesn't really matter how much time a student is on a device. It's a different screen, and the more familiar they are with it, then that removes that barrier in terms of performance. And you know, I don't think that SAS performance kind of drives our curriculum decisions, but it's certainly a consideration. You want to make sure that you remove any possible barriers for our students so that they're demonstrating their knowledge and
I
skills.
recall test outcome where our students almost universally missed the same question across all grades because they had not been taught to fill in the title page of a lab format in the way that the test demanded. And so while they got all the data correct, we had very high scores on the data. We got 0 points for the whole thing because they didn't put whatever title thing, which was extremely irritating. But we don't have any control over that. That comes down to us from on high. So if the tablets make the difference and that sort of thing, there's some validity there. But if you have Chromebooks with first graders, do they stay with the first graders for the 4 or 5 year cycle, or do you cycle them up to the sixth graders who break theirs and, you know?
It's a good question.
Yeah, so we have struggled with that question and coming up with the right solution. We moved our older Chromebooks down to the lower grades, the ones that are more delicate because they don't get moved as much, and then we moved the better performing to the high
Higher
school
ones.
to 9th and 10th grade this year because those students need a higher performing device, and that's a little sturdier.
And I would say that 9th and 10th of co-op devices, so we didn't move Hollis devices, to the co-op and vice versa. But what we found is that 7th and 8th graders were not the right candidate for the more expensive, higher quality device, as they were just getting used to transitioning between classes. They are now also able to use their backpacks throughout today to decrease the number of dropped Chromebooks in the hallway. So
Yeah, in Hollis specifically, we moved the newer Chromebooks up to grades 4, 5, and 6. So grade 5 got brand new Chromebooks, grade 6 got 1-year-old Chromebooks, and then the older ones did circle back down to 1, 2, and 3. So they have the older ones, which are also, they won't get used as much.
So they might pass
Yeah.
I have a couple of
Yeah,
questions. But
please.
first, I just wanted to say, so my youngest child was in, second grade, doing remote learning. So that was the school year, I want to say, 2020, 2021. It's all a blur, isn't it?
Yep.
Blocked it
And
out.
so she was in second grade. She was in first grade when the shutdown happened, and then second grade in remote learning. And I just kind of wanted to, I know it's one data point, I just wanted to speak from experience, like child in second grade. And at the beginning of the year, I was just like, how is this going to even work? We purchased the Chromebook because I would have felt bad if she destroyed one of your Chromebooks. So I was like, we just purchased one. And I really was not, I had a hard time envisioning how this was going to work, and she astonished me.
Yeah.
The way that she was able to utilize, to access all of the Google Classroom. I mean, I kind of helped get her set up, but I was just amazed at the ability of a second grader to be able to navigate through all these classes in a remote setting on a Chromebook. And so it's pretty amazing what these kids can learn even at a really, really young age. I just want to kind of give my own personal experience. I know it's only one data point, but
Well, here, data point number 2. I had a first and third grader in the same scenario, and they would walk into my home office because I work from a home office, and they would give me shortcut keys for Zoom.
Pointers, exactly.
I know. They were telling me what to do.
Platform I've been using for years. They're like, oh, just do this.
Yeah.
It does, I'm like, get out of my office.
So a couple questions quickly. You had mentioned kind of that
hours, the man hours and the staffing, and that's in your Excel spreadsheet. And I was just wondering, is that already included in this budget recommendation, the staffing
The
part as well?
staffing's not included, but we have a 10% price increase because we don't know where pricing's gonna go. For technology, sometimes a price can stay the same for one model for 3 or 4 years, and then it can jump by $50. You just don't know. It's very fluctuates tremendously, but we have also accounted for changes of an enrollment, and then a 10% price increase just because we had to factor something in.
Okay. Do you think that the staffing needs would be significant enough that we would want to add that in?
So my plan is, we've had a summer intern for the last 2 summers, and she's coming back. She's a former HBHS grad. Yep, and she's coming back, and then I want to hire 2 high school students, depending on how many devices we buy over the summer, and they can do the unboxing and start setting up. And that could be an intern, it could be definitely a program. I don't know what we will pay, but I don't think it would be a huge budget issue.
Okay.
That was going to
Yeah.
be my same question. Was
Yeah.
are we looking at it as being a stipend position for an existing staff member where they would get paid to do that kind of stuff?
I really
in
want to
addition, or-
use high school students. I tried 2 years ago and I didn't get any applications, but then it turned out it was better to have a former grad for age restrictions and working by themselves and all that. So Ashley is coming back for her 3rd year this summer.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
And then I have one more question. I mean, this is already, the Chromebooks are already being used. The high school, I've described that. I was just thinking, backpacks and kind of what people are using to hold their devices and stuff. Are there any, guidelines given to the students? Because, for example, this is my not so good backpack, and I was kind of like, oh crap, I just grabbed the closest one, and I was a little bit worried about how well it would protect my laptop. Are there guidelines given to the students or anything about that in terms of how to protect the Chromebook at the high school and middle school levels?
Or laptop
Since they're going to be
sleeves
moving,
provided.
yeah, moving back and forth and things like that.
We recommend a cover or a case, and we have that on the form when you sign off on your Chromebook. But other than that, we don't have any particular recommendations, just some sort of protection. It could be the sleeve inside the backpack that's protected.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm older, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming nowadays that all backpacks are designed with
yeah.
the
Yeah.
sleeve.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yep.
they didn't have
A
that
sleeve,
before,
but it's not always padded.
And
They
also,
have,
you
like-
can always sit on your backpack, and there goes the
Right.
sleeve.
And then the sleeve doesn't do anything.
Right,
Yeah.
you see the backpacks getting stacked on the back of the bus and all that.
But we do not budget for protectors or covers
But I think
or
her-
sleeves.
Andrew's suggesting, could there be a recommendation page somewhere?
Sure.
The more
Yeah.
information you give parents, the
Yeah.
more likely something
It-
gets done.
It might be more that it's not on the minds of the students or their parents. That's probably the
Yeah,
last thing
absolutely.
they're thinking about.
Yeah, we can put out some recommendations.
Nice.
I have questions. First of all, would you consider, have you thought about implementing an incentive program of some kind that's kind of like, recycling bottles, where students get some kind of reward, I don't mean financial, but some kind of something that incentivizes returning your Chromebook in X condition at the end of each year?
No, but that's a really good idea.
Because,
Yeah.
people, I learned from Mother and Child at a consignment store that when teenagers discover they can resell their clothes, they wash them themselves instead of having mom shrink them in the dryer.
But to that point,
That's never happened.
to that point though, we do charge for certain broken screens and destroyed devices.
Interesting.
For any device that the administration of that school determines that it was intentional and not accidental, we charge, and we collected of what we charged. I think at the high school there was probably 20 devices that we charged either for completely destroyed or a screen, and we out of the 20 we got 12 to 14 either miraculously found or we received payments.
I just have found, despite my inclinations to the contrary, that incentivizing a positive outcome is better than punishment.
Yeah.
The other question I had is, oh crud, where did it go? Chromebooks and thinking about it, I wanted to ask, and then this disappeared. I like the question Andrea asked you about the staffing. I know. So students who work for you in the summer, that kind of thing, I mean, probably one presumes the tendency is going to be that they're kids who like computers, et cetera, and maybe want to go in that direction, whether it would be through a 2-year program or a 4-year program or whatever. And that kind of job is great on a resume, on a college application or a job application. So I think that can have extended benefits for the participants.
Absolutely.
To the matters brought up earlier by the administrative team, when my computer aficionado went to school here, the computer science teacher appointed him one wing time a week to repair broken Chromebooks. They had the extra keys off of this and that, and he was grossly incompetent at it, but learned so much and managed to actually rescue a couple, and he ended up getting a wing award, the certificates, because of that success. I think there are opportunities there for this whole program to, have other.
We've discussed that as well, to have, some sort of internship in-house or extended learning opportunity.
The little mini businesses,
Yep.
Tiny
the
businesses.
tiny
Yeah.
businesses, the microloan things.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there's a lot
Yeah.
of ways to, maybe doesn't impact it in a large way.
Yep.
But to make it relevant to
Yep.
students and to maybe perhaps get more students engaged in managing their.
Yep, we have discussed that option. Yep.
Any other questions for Carol? Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
thank you.
It is currently 7:06 p.m. and we can call forth public input. There are no members of the public present right now, but we will entertain any comment. What? Oh, is she? Are you here from? Are you here as public? Sorry.
Both.
Okay. If there is a member of the public, if she would like to speak, I invite her to the podium at this time.
All set. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. Thanks for clarifying your position tonight. So we'll leave it open if anybody does show up for the next 30 minutes. And now we move into the discussion portion, and we're going to look at the principal's report.
Okay, so the principals did a great job of bringing life to their report, but I will just identify that we are down a few students in both of our buildings, specifically grade 1, where we really didn't have room for any more students. We are down 3 students, so that helps out the class sizes a little bit. Not that we don't want to keep our students, but it tends to not happen in the grade level that needs it the most. But tomorrow is an early release day, so our teachers will be completing the suicide prevention training that's mandatory during that early release time, if they haven't done so already, and students will be going home earlier than typical. Coming up is fire prevention, on the 12th at Hollis Primary, and it just occurred on the 2nd at Hughes. You saw building and grounds, all the amazing work that was completed, and you heard about staffing, so.
Can I jump in? It is expected by the construction team that the second grade level bathrooms will be open for business Monday the 16th. We had a meeting today. They're pushing really hard on that target, so.
Awesome.
Yes, we've identified October 31st, because anytime sooner than that means a win.
Well, just for parents and teachers.
Yeah, no,
That's-
it is coming to an end, and we're definitely working through the punch lists and making progress, so.
Under promise, over deliver.
Right.
Excellent. And then we have a discussion about legislative changes that impact curriculum.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right, so there are a bunch of items that have come through that we've been spending a lot of time working with. Starting with HB 170, so this was a bill that, bless you, that required cursive and multiplication table instruction. So it's provide instruction by the end of grade 5 for those. So we teach multiplication in many different forms, but specifically there will be instruction on a table as well by the end of grade 5. Cursive.
Excuse me, I'm
Yes.
sorry. We teach multiplication, many grade levels.
Yes.
What are you talking about? I don't understand what you just said.
So
Multiplication table.
the table, you know, the trapper keeper inside, like. The
Where it's 1
0,
times
1,
one
So
is
two,
kind
this,
of
1
like
times
the
2 is
principal
this.
that said we failed a test question because we didn't put the title the way the test
yeah, so
wanted
it's
it, like that, like
so
a
there's no
format thing?
assessment from it. It literally says provide instruction on the multiplication table, is the law.
So like a chart?
Yep.
The table.
Yes.
You grew up with. And I grew
Yeah,
so
exactly. The
up.
thing
1 through
we
12,
all use.
1 through 12.
So, are we just talking multiplication facts?
we are, yes.
Okay.
But there's no clarification on if it's automaticity, if, what it is that we're looking for. But we are certainly going to provide instruction.
Honestly, I
Continued
don't think that's such a bad idea.
instruction
Some
on
people
multiplication
learn
tables.
from everything being right in front of them
Yep.
all at once. That's great.
Both of my children still have their multiplication
Yes.
tables. They just
So-
live with them and go through it, so it's happening.
It
right?
is. So it's not really a change for us.
Okay.
But I think it's potentially there was a concern at the state level, and so it's HB 170.
This
And
isn't
it-
directed at Hollis, this is the whole state.
correct. Yep, it's a state level.
Were we
um,
teaching cursive anyway?
So cursive, historically, we were teaching in grade 3. During COVID, we strayed a little bit away from cursive, and so some of us have gone back, but I'm not sure it was across the board. So there will be cursive instruction by the end of grade 5, for all of our students. HB 2 created a commission to establish materials for civics, so there will be a state-written civics textbook, if you will. So that will be interesting to see what comes of that. SB
For
2
elementary level?
for all levels.
And repeat where this textbook is coming from?
From the commission that is establishing the state level. So we don't have, so it's interesting, there is a strong push. If you recall, social studies standards were being developed and then pulled back, and we've gotten nowhere with social studies standard. There is a concern that the law is stating that we have additional civics requirements without any standards being identified. However, what's more important, I would say, for us is SB 216, which is civics instruction. So there are quite a few requirements in our co-op for civics instruction, but for us, it requires K-5, dedicated class time for civics in each elementary grade, which can be integrated with other subjects. So we are doing this. Abby, her counterpart in Brookline, Meg, and I are simply doing a crosswalk of our existing curriculum so we can identify how we are meeting that requirement of dedicated class time.
I don't know how much things have changed since my kids were in these buildings, but they got what I would have called civics from kindergarten on. But I don't know what the state means by civics. This is what I was,
That was what I
I
was
mean,
just
I've been
gonna ask.
following this, but I
Right.
haven't been able to see any place where that's defined.
Right,
Is
and so
civics strictly town and state for New Hampshire? Does it include all the way through federal government? Is it some other kind of citizenship?
So one requirement now, beginning with this year's seniors, is they need to have a semester civics course. They also need to pass a citizenship test, the 2021.
The citizenship test that foreigners come and become citizens. They
And
take
so, and that,
test.
we have to report that to the state, the results. They need, graduation requirement, they need to pass that. And they also need to pass a separate locally designed assessment in civics. So quite high stakes testing for our, typically it's our juniors, but sometimes students take civics, VLAC separately in a different year, et cetera. But it says, defines civics as a nonpartisan educational program to encompass civic knowledge, acquisition of the knowledge of history, heritage, civic life, civic institutions, United States, ability to analyze text and determine the reliability and biases of sources, understanding of the ways in which civic institutions operate and how individuals may be involved in civic life, an appreciation for free speech and civil discourse, using historical references such as Federalist, Anti-Federalist papers, the major debates in the Constitutional Convention of 1787, congressional and public debates leading to the Civil War, and civil rights debates of the 1950s and 1960s. So we are, as a leadership group, pushing back, requiring, asking, begging for standards so that we can really meet an identified goal rather than just a target that's out there that's not clearly defined. So what we're doing in the meanwhile is reviewing all that we're already doing and doing a crosswalk to say, when are we meeting this requirement of dedicated class time with this broad definition? So.
Based on that, that matches what my children's experience.
And I'm not concerned. It's really just, like I said, doing a crosswalk. I don't see it changing anything drastically. Could we add additional items? Certainly. So it's always a good thing to review it. We were hoping to review our social studies curriculum a few years ago with the anticipation of released standards, but that was put on hold at the state level, so we sort of halted our work, so we weren't going in this direction if the state was going to go in that direction. But we'll see where that takes us.
It's a good opportunity to create a really globally factual curriculum.
Yes. Another one that we've already sort of mentioned is HB 377, which is screening and intervention for dyslexia and related disorders. So a communication went home to all K-3 families yesterday about this and how we're meeting it. It really doesn't change our practice here. So prior, the law stated that we needed to administer DIBELS to kindergarten and first grade. Now we need to administer evidence-based screeners for all students K-3 within the first 60 days of their arrival. So for most students, they start on the first day of school, so within the first 60 days of school. But if we have a student that transfers in October 1st, we need to make sure we screen them within the first 60 days. We have to repeat this screening a second time. We are already repeating Ames Web. We're doing it 3 times a year. So we're more than meeting the standard, and we have been. If a student fails to meet benchmark for the typical grade typical development, then we need to provide a secondary assessment to determine if the school should provide modified, differentiated, or supplementary evidence-based reading, or beyond that, a special ed referral. So that's already part of what we do with our RTI process here. The slight difference is we're just reviewing secondary assessments to make sure that we are in line with our practices with Brookline and Hollis. And so we have a lot of great literacy work that's being directed by our Assistant Director of Student Services, who is finishing up her second PhD in literacy. So she's absolutely knows the most, and so absolutely this is her area of expertise, and I'm letting her lead the charge with me included in the process and our reading specialists, etc. So there's that.
Excuse me, just to clarify. So Ames Web is dyslexia screening? I was under the impression it was just like, DRA, kind of like with your reading level.
So it is considered an evidence-based dyslexia pre-screener, but if you're not meeting that grade level expectation, then we need to dig deeper to fine-tune it a little bit and to better understand, is it dyslexia, is it something else, and how do we provide supports for those students?
So you're saying that Ames Web is qualifies
for a
this
evidence-based
like
screener.
Satisfies the requirements.
The legal requirements, yep.
as
So
opposed to it functions as a dyslexia screening.
correct.
Got
It's that initial screening.
Yeah, that's clarifying. Thank you.
Okay.
And not to say that if there are that's not the only way we might identify that there is a particular concern. We have all of our other processes in place. We have our team that meets and discusses everything that we're seeing. We're not relying on this one tool. We are now going to be sending home all the results from that initial evidence-based screener. We also do math at the same time, so both reports will go home in backpack mail. You'll be notified when they're sent home. Parents will be notified when they're sent home. So that's a great opportunity to ask the individual teacher. So I have this report. What does that mean to you as a teacher, as the expert with my child in terms of reading and math?
Question. The testing that we do or that schools use may not be the only tool that is available to professionals in the field, and sometimes private professionals have other tools that can generate different results than we can with what we do. And so a parent gets a report from us that suggests that there is no dyslexia, and parent suspects dyslexia, and parent or guardian takes child to a private practitioner who finds for dyslexia using a different tool. does that come back to us, and they bring that back to us, we still are going to look at that and honor it and respond to that?
So that is a whole process in a special ed referral. The team has to review the report. They have to agree in that meeting to accept the report and then go from there. So there are so many nuances there that I don't want to.
But it isn't explicitly forbidden? Or
No, absolutely not. No, and the same is true. Like I said, we do AIMSWIT Plus for all of our learners. But if you're the classroom teacher and you're working with all of your students every day and you're curious about something, that's when you go to RTI and you bring, this is the data I have. There's all the different data points. And this is what I'm seeing. What are some things I can do to work more closely with this student to kind of figure out, is this more helpful? Would this, additional resource, additional tool, additional instruction help that student move to the next level? So.
Well, that wouldn't cure dyslexia. That
No,
would-
but there might be some other barrier
Right.
that you're just trying to uncover, that it
Sure,
wasn't
sure,
necessarily
sure.
exposed in this screener or in another screener. No one screener is going to work for everybody, certainly. All right, so then we have SB 179, restraint and seclusion. So the bigger concern, not really concern, but I guess has people talking, is they revised the definition of seclusion to include not just when a child is in a room by themselves, which really doesn't happen here, but if a child feels they cannot leave the room. So if a child is in the library, let's say this is a larger space, and there's something in the hallway, and so the other adult has to look in the hallway, does the child feel they cannot leave, and therefore that would be included in the definition of seclusion. So we just have to rethink every instance and every scenario and take a lot of notes in terms of what is happening, who's called to where, and then just document everything. Because I don't believe that this should be a concern of ours, but we just want to make sure that we have documented everything according to the new definition of seclusion. So there are plenty of bills, but those are the ones that specifically would impact us here in Hollis.
Thank you. Any other questions for Gina? Okay. Thank you, Gina.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Now we're moving into deliberation. Our first item up is to see what action the board will take regarding the business administrator's memorandum concerning a 457B plan. Thanks for coming tonight, Carol.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Okay, so we are looking to simply add a 457 plan to the benefits. And prior, we were asked to send out a survey and see if there was any level of interest. 136 surveys went out. We received 26 back. For those that currently have a 403B plan, 19 in total, we received 4 maybes and 8 yeses. For those that don't have a 403B plan, we received 10 maybe responses and 4 yes responses and 1 no response. So adding the benefit to the district benefits will add additional work to both the SAU Human Resources Department and Business Office staff. Not a tremendous amount, but additional work nonetheless. So the business administrator, based on the information above, recommends that we pilot the program for 1 year, and if we have 8 or more active participants, then we continue the benefit, and if we have fewer than 8, then we discontinue the benefit.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the addition of a 457B plan to district benefits as a pilot program. If after 1 year of offering this benefit, the district has 8 active participants, the plan will be continued. If there are fewer than 8 active participants, the benefit will. I'm curious, what happens if we pilot it, there are 9 participants, we say, okay, we'll do it the following year, there are 9 participants, and then after that, there are 7 participants. Are we going to turn the plan on and off depending on this 8 threshold? And also, related to that question, so I don't have to ask again, is how, I don't understand how these things work. Is there, let's say the employees involved retire and no more people pick up on it, and it is discontinued as an active program, are we managing something for the lifetime of the individuals who participate.
Right, no, that is a really good question. I think the challenge or the additional work is in setting it up, not so much the maintenance of it.
Oh.
Any other discussion?
So they would be able to, if we were not offered anymore, to just roll it over into their 403B, we would assume.
That's my
that-
assumption, but I
that-
don't want to speak definitively on that.
Any other cues or discussion? Yeah, no?
I mean, everyone can make their own decisions if that's what they want to do. I mean, if staff wants it offered to them, I think we should allow it, I guess.
All right, let's take a vote. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. Next item is to see what action the board will take regarding the business administrator's memorandum concerning the treasurer stipend.
Okay, so this came about as we found ourselves in need of new treasurers. And we realized that we hadn't reviewed how much we pay the treasurer for quite some time. So currently we're paying $1,000 per school district to be the school district treasurer, and then $600 for the SAU treasurer. So we reviewed other districts and what their stipends are, and the business administrator is recommending that we increase the stipend for the Hollis School District treasurer from $1,000 to $1,700 per year, and then also $1,275 for the SAU. So you'll see this at the governing board.
I move to approve, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Chair. Yeah,
I'll take a motion.
I
You're
beg
good. Thank you.
your
Jump in.
pardon. I move to approve a 60-month, no, wrong one, sorry. I move to approve, to increase the stipend paid to the district treasurer from $1,000 to $1,700 per year effective November 1, 2023, to include a 3-year review process.
Second the motion.
Just to remind the public, the treasurer in Hollis is elected,
Mhm.
so just doesn't
Yes.
formal.
Yeah, it's not an appointed position. Any discussion?
Seems appropriate.
And also, the treasurer doesn't have a daily task in the office, right? There, it's every 2 weeks the person comes in and, right, correct. Signs documents.
Sounds good. All right. No other discussion. We can go ahead and vote. All in favor? Next item is to see what action the board will take regarding the business administrator's memorandum concerning the SAU portable.
Right, so we discussed this a little bit at annual meeting when we were looking for the SAU Expendable Trust. And we currently have a portable, we call it the bunker, for our files. And the thought was swapping that out for a more functional space that provides us with some additional benefits. The business administrator did some research on leasing or purchasing a larger portable unit to have appropriately sized conference room and to increase our storage capabilities. So we found a 28 by 52, a 2-classroom unit, and the thought would be one side would be utilized for the conference room, and the other side could be utilized for storage. We have many storage needs: IT, maintenance, purchasing, and overflowing attic records. The HR records currently stored in the small portable would come back into the SAU in the current conference room. The unit would have electric and propane heating and cooling. And there are spaces for 2 bathrooms, but they are not currently set up as such. So that's beneficial for a couple reasons. Number one, it's another storage closet. Without the bathroom fixtures, etc., that is just another lockable space. Another benefit would be if we really had a more urgent need for additional classroom space. This would be owned by the Hollis School District, and the Hollis School District would have 2 essential classrooms right on the SAU field. they could be moved closer. Those bathroom units could be fixed up to actually have a bathroom if we found ourselves in that need. And if we didn't find ourselves in that need, then it could remain as originally intended as a conference room and storage. In terms of storage, if you've ever been to the SAU office when you receive a delivery, you see that you can't quite see over that half wall because there's boxes, stacked up incredibly high. We could create a spot where we could order more paper and then just maintain it in that storage facility, getting a cheaper rate rather than doing continual ordering. So there's just some different ideas in terms of what items we would be storing instead of just simply records that we're required to keep.
Can I ask a question? You just said it would be owned by the Hollis School District, but we're talking about a lease. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So
that.
owned or leased by the Hollis School District. So
Okay.
As
depending
opposed
on
to the SAU,
Okay.
correct.
yeah, overall.
Our purview.
So Hollis taxpayers would pay the entire bill, and it would be it would be under whatever rental.
It's
they
funded
got.
via the rent, but essentially it's Hollis School District owns
That's
for
that's
Lundy.
true. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It would come out of the rent that we receive, which we.
Right. So the purchase
and then
can
SAU
we,
rents it from us.
Can we entertain a motion before
Yes.
before we get too
So I
deeply into the
move to
discussion?
approve a 60-month lease of a 28-foot by 52-foot two-classroom portable unit. The anticipated monthly cost is in the area of $2,000 to $800. That's monthly, yeah, with a one-time payment of approximately $30,000. Final lease documents will be submitted to the board for approval. Sources of funding are the expendable trust fund and the SAU general budget.
Second?
Oh, second.
Thank you.
So just some additional details. The purchase price is $167,000. The 60-month lease, $30,000 down, which is what we happened to have as identified last year at the annual meeting. $2,800 a month for that lease. It would be turned so that the doors would be similar to where the door to our bunker is right now, but the idea would be that it would go a long way behind the barn, so it would be sort of tucked back there and not just right in the middle of the field. Doesn't
So-
I was
add-
trying to picture where it was going to go. I was like, that's
So for our newer members in particular, maybe you haven't spent much time in the SAU offices. The building is a 125-year-old farmhouse. It has been over 20-plus years literally owned by the Hollis School District. And we receive rent from the other districts and our own district, and which, as you know, we put into the annual maintenance trust. It's bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens that have been modified through just this year, after 125 years, the removal of a bathtub. Just this year. So everyone is using a building, and we have multiple times looked at plans to really do a giant renovation of that building. We spent a great deal of time and some resources to create a plan for renovating and rebuilding out on the footprint of the barn that's there, which is in not falling down condition. It is stable, but it's not usable in any way as it is, into a space that includes potential classroom, mostly conference, additional offices, so that people aren't sharing bathrooms as an office and bedrooms as an office. We were about to present that very large plan to the voters at the March district meeting in 2020. And we got the district meeting in under the wire. The town's meeting the following Saturday was canceled, but we felt it would be completely imprudent to present such a large bond issue that would likely take multiple years to discuss and pass to a room with 35 or 70 voters under emergency circumstances. So in the meantime, over all these many years, storage of mandated documents we are required to keep on paper. There are laws that say if we receive certain kinds of documents digitally, we have to print them out. So we have boxes and boxes. Some of these documents have to be retained on paper in multiples for the duration of the lifetime of former students who have, for example, identified disabilities which may come into play when there are other payments that they're due later in life. So the storage problems at the SAU, we call it the SAU building, but it's really the Foreland Lane building that the SAU leases, are very significant, and we've been fighting that battle now for years and years. The little modular unit that is sitting on the property is one attempt at solving the most critical functions. This building suggestion would, the current conference room is literally the size of these two tables and just enough room to put your chair back and get out of the room. One end is against a wall, the other end has one chair, and there's a door. It is the entire room, and it used to be the hallway in front of the IT guy's office leading into the bathroom. That is the conference room. So it's not adequate in any way, shape, or form. I personally feel it's not even safe. So ultimately, if there was an emergency. So I feel this is a really valid approach to dealing with a problem that has plagued the district since, I would say, well over a dozen years. And the reason we have the large SAU staff we have is, for example, the technology issues. They did not exist when we first leased that building, bought that building to lease to the SAU. We didn't have almost any IT people, any technology people, because there wasn't any. Now it's become, a matter of firewalls and ransomware and, all of the technology. So part of the problem with the building is that the staff has had to increase in order to deal with modern academic life, modern school management. And we are just oozing through the walls, and I feel this is a really valid and necessary step.
Thank you for adding
Yeah,
that. It's
thank you for
important to
providing
hear.
that background.
You're welcome.
It's very valuable.
Yeah, they, a little, even more addition of a background is all of those files were up in the attic of the
Oh,
building.
yes, I forgot about that.
And it was warping the floor, which is the ceiling, of course, of the people upstairs. And so they
yes.
had to be moved out of there, so we needed to put them somewhere else.
Right.
But this brings up my next question then, is you said that the things that are in the bunker right now would be moved into this current conference room, since it's not a great space for meeting. Are we concerned about structural issues with moving that weight back into the building?
So let me clarify. So some of the records have been moved into the bunker. The attic is still quite full with plenty of records, with warped ceilings on the second floor. So it's the attic that really needs that load off. That first floor should be okay
All right.
with the records, yeah.
The first floor sits over a dirt crawl space.
Correct.
which
I
is
just wanted to
visited
make sure
by
that there
our
was.
woodland friends.
That sometimes sneak in the wall. It's fine.
That's great. Regularly. I can play the cricket that was in my office.
Is
In the ball.
I totally agree. Clearly this is something that needs to be addressed and soon, right? Is this considered kind of like a stopgap for kind of like a longer term thing
Probably.
that will inevitably come?
I do think the population is certainly exploding here. And so we really need to look at that long term. The population is expected to continue to increase in Brookline as well. So I do think it's more of a stopgap, and we really need to figure out what is our plan for continued growth if we do see this, because one of the reasons why our first grade classes are larger is the availability of highly qualified teachers, but also the availability of classrooms. And the requirements of first grade to be on that first floor. So we could have more classrooms upstairs, but that's not going to help us. Mm-hmm. So, and as we develop more, we have to do some long-term strategic planning in terms of facilities and
Kind of enrollment committee. That's what
Yeah, we had
Amy's been
actually-
talking about, to have the,
Yeah, we'd actually talked
expand
about
it.
maybe moving forward on that in this meeting. Perhaps it's because Amy and Andy were unable to join us this tonight.
that's why it's not,
Yeah.
I didn't want to
So
move
we
forward
would-
on some of those without them. I think it's important.
Absolutely.
just for my own kind of knowledge, how much time do you think this gets us?
So I'm not really concerned about growth of the SAU beyond this space. I think this space is more than adequate long term. I think the bigger issue really is this building.
Okay.
This all sounds like a fire hazard to me. I mean, it's just
Well,
all
so-
this,
yeah, I
this,
mean, the
this paper
four-line lane-
everywhere in this, like,
It's a lot. You should tour it sometime. They'll bring you.
I have.
Yeah.
Oh, the attic too?
Not the
Not
attic.
the attic.
Not the attic. That sounds.
There's some.
And the barn you're describing
You can't put
sounds
anything in there. It's
relatively
done. Yeah.
dangerous. Almost.
There's nothing in there, so the barn is fine. It's just,
It's a decoration essentially.
yeah. You'd like to save
With
some
beautiful
equipment.
history, and it's
Yeah.
a shame to tear it down, but it's so costly to make it
Renovate.
usable.
So one of the things that, to just answer the longer term question, Andy has talked about in our public meetings here, is that, and ancillary to that are some of the dynamics between the two towns that own the co-op together. It is entirely possible that the most effective use of all the taxpayers' money is to build something new that incorporates, the pre-K, the
Okay.
programs, and even the kindergarten.
With the
And
administrative?
potentially, if you could wave your magic wand and you were gonna build something from scratch, one place to put it would be on the backfield behind the SAU. But another place to put it, if you were gonna decide that the pre-K and K programs are so important and valid and growing, maybe you would build something in a plot that's more between the two towns or closer to, if you could find such land. And it would be a massive undertaking. Again, a big dream, because we have the land here, we already own it, right behind the SAU. So the question of, if you were gonna build something from scratch, what would it be and where would it be?
It's been under discussion for a long time.
A billion years. So, again, we're so used to this being the SAU offices, but it isn't. It is a property owned by the Hollis School District that is leased to the SAU. If we really wanted to build something new, I don't know that the Hollis taxpayer wants to foot the bill for a building that is dedicated ultimately to a single tenant, and that tenant is shared by the two towns. It's very, very complex, complicated, political,
It's contentious.
emotional.
Yeah,
But also there's just fair and square some math involved, that's a lot of math. So in terms of answering the question, how long is this scenario gonna hold? It has to hold as long as it takes for us to manage this.
Figure it.
Apportionment's coming in a couple years and you're gonna learn some things.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the discussion that happened with the scenario that Tammy's mentioning with having a portion of the building be leasable space that we've leased to the SAU in a long-term lease, and the bottom floor being pre-K, we have a massive demand for our pre-K program, massive, and we don't have space to include more. People sit on wait lists until their kids are, they have to choose somewhere else. So having that opportunity to even gently entertain that as even a revenue stream for the district, because you have this new space, and then you have a whole area in this building to expand the existing classrooms. And as Gina's mentioning, with those mandates of first grade and below have to be on an exit level
Right.
of the building.
Without steps.
Building on top of here is not going to help us at all
Right.
unless you start moving the cafeteria, the gymnasium to upper floors, which is
Right.
not possible. So it's certainly one to discuss. But this does bring up is there a get out clause in there, or can we upgrade it if we needed to? What does that look like?
So our bunker is a leased building structure, and we would turn that in and be getting this. So that tells me it's not
Possible.
long-term binding, yeah.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I know you had asked this question already, and I didn't quite understand the answer. So when we're talking about lease, we own it, but we're leasing it from ourselves? Or what is meant by this lease? I'm sorry.
The Hollis School District will lease this to
Yeah.
supplement the property that we own, that the SAU leases from us, the district.
So the Brookline
For
School
everything
District will
there.
not be paying for the lease.
Correct.
And the Co-op School District will not be paying for the lease. The Hollis School District would be paying the lease.
Okay.
The revenue for that would come from the rental to the SAU. This is something every taxpayer struggles with.
Yeah.
You're just
Rental.
the
Yeah.
most recent one.
Yeah.
So the way it works is we own property.
Yes.
Okay, that's that 4 Lund Lane building with the.
Right. That's
And Brookline School District, the Co-op School District, and the Hollis School District each pay a rental amount.
right. Yeah, okay.
Because, the reason we pay also is because it is money we pay to rent it for our SAU administrative unit, right, the school administrative unit. And that rental money is rented to the Hollis School District, is given to the Hollis School District, and we put it into the building maintenance for the building, right, for the property. But the SAU cannot own property. SAU, the school administrative unit, may not by law own anything. So somebody has to own it. In this case, the Hollis School District owns this property and it's rented. So if we want to add to this property, whether we lease a unit like this or build something, that is
Or
our
renovate that beautiful
taxpayers. That comes, we pay for it. We're the ones who sign. Okay, we're the ones
Okay.
who sign that lease. Does
So-
that make sense?
Yeah, so, but that would also, so this would be the lease that the Hollis School District is taking out, which would then get paid for by the 3 different,
It would get paid for by the rent
By the
to the
expense of the
SAU. It's the same amount of rent. We haven't changed the rent. We could discuss that.
That was
Right.
Or
my
not
next-
discuss that.
okay,
But we have an amount of rent, 27,000, blah, 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 right? That goes into, that is the rent for the
Right.
4 Lund Lane property. And that we have every year vote to put that into trust for maintenance.
okay.
So that's all the pool of money we have to expend on this.
So what does that do with the maintenance trust if something else comes up, if the maintenance trust money
These
is
are
being
all good
spent on this?
questions. Ask the boss. But I'm just trying to explain the structure.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this right. So the Hollis School District, Brookline, and the co-op are paying rent for.
That we set, that this board sets.
That we set.
Yes.
That
this board
to help
sets.
us cover the
Yes.
cost of this lease, which.
No, but they pay us rent to put the SAU staff in our property,
In 4 Lund Lane.
the end.
Right.
If we want to spend
We can do-
trillions of dollars, they're paying the same rent unless we change it.
Okay, all right.
This doesn't change the revenue.
Right.
So let me clarify something. Do they need to approve
Nope.
paying a higher rent? So for
Yes.
example, if we
Yes.
were to
No.
say, so we
Well,
could say,
we could
we're gonna
raise-
be spending more money now.
The
We need you to
SAU
pay this,
The
and then they
SAU
have to.
governing board,
So this
of
week,
which we are a part, would
Not
vote
this-
on that.
Right.
so next week, we would be discussing that, I would imagine.
If that's up for discussion, but if
Okay.
that's not, I don't believe
That
that's.
has-
We
Or
don't
it's-
see that
it hasn't
mentioned
put-
here as a necessity.
Not at this time. Something to consider is that if you recall, we have a policy that is in middle of drafts that we put on hold for a few years now, and it's the rental
Right.
property policy. So we can pull that out again because we did a thorough analysis, and the current rate of our rent was determined to be at market value. We did a process where we increased it slowly over 3 years, but it's market value because the property isn't really
Competitive.
competitive for any
So
other
we tried
business.
to-
There are no comps.
We used to charge for rent a minuscule amount of money. For like 10 or 15 years, it was $8,000 a year. And then, the building was really starting to really show its age and then getting too packed. So we worked with our sister districts in Brookline and the co-op through an open dialogue, et cetera, did a big what's the word, comps? Real estate comps. Comparisons to look at other properties that were for sale that might have equivalent square footage, something, trying to get our hand, but you have to also add driving and, the locale, et cetera, and determined a certain rate that we, like Carol said, we spent 3 years with the other districts working our way up to that rate, which is the current one. And it's been here for, I don't years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, well, no, 6, I think, 7. So, that's how we did it. So it was a dialogue with our colleagues in the other districts, to ensure that they're supported, that understand the objectives, the purpose, the reasons, the needs, and that their boards voted to support. And so, you know, it's a dance to get there, but ultimately we have authority over this property and we decide.
Okay.
So, you know, this brings up the thing that I'm used to Tammy is, if our expendable trust is being expended just on this, what happens if something else happens to the building that we need to fix?
Sure. So one of the ways that we set the rent was based on square footage. So if we are significantly increasing the available square footage, I do think that warrants a reevaluation of the rent and a incremental increase.
And it would be small that way because the square footage is, it's not like a big jump with a brand new
It's not a
building.
huge jump, but it would be considerable. If our conference room now is really just not usable as such, so we are always using the conference room at the high school. Sometimes at the middle school, but we're always using co-op for an SAU function. So that's probably not, doesn't make the most sense.
Not ideal.
It's not ideal. We should have our own space. So functionality, I do think we need the space. I think we can fully justify an increase in rent. I'm just looking at, I'm going back and forth with Kelly to confirm, but the purchase price is $167. If you calculate the monthly payments plus the down payment, that comes out to $198,000. So to me, that tells me that we're not leasing for just fair market value over 5 years, that's a kind of a rent to own, if you will, a lease
Yeah, that's right.
to own, lease purchase agreement as the structure.
Is it literally rent to
Rent to
own?
own.
Is it lease to purchase?
So it's called a lease. I went to a legal session today on lease purchase agreements. If you ask me based on the structure, just that's in this memo, it appears
Looks like it,
as
right?
though it's a lease purchase agreement. Similar to the copiers that we did last year.
Is there a way to amend this motion so that we could add a little caveat about, we understand Kelly's sense that time is of the essence. At the same time, I guess, it'd be uncomfortable if we are voting on something we don't actually know, do we become the owners at the end? Kind of thing. And
Can Kelly answer that, do you think?
It's not a definitive answer.
Gotcha.
I also am wondering if we should be voting on this if there's not something in there of, like, what happens, as reasonable as it sounds, we're increasing square footage, we need to have an increase in rent. That's still an
That
unknown.
takes time.
That still needs to be voted upon and approved. What happens if the SAU doesn't approve paying us more rent?
Then our expendable trust is spent all the time.
So that is a concern. I agree that this is needed. It just seemed that we have two unknowns that
Timing
seem
seems
to be relatively significant.
We can table the motion. That might mean that we lose the unit. But I agree it's like the chicken and the egg. And
Excuse me.
potentially it would be time to pull out, I think we were on second reading of that policy to look at it. And we could also potentially look to see if we can add an agenda item for next week, because the agenda's not set.
You know, the thing that's not here is typically we could look at, or is it, and I've forgotten, that's not out of the question. We don't have, do we have a balance here today of what our expendable trust looks like? So one of the things that we've talked about in the past few years is that in the context of building out the barn footprint, it was never going to be saving this barn, there were going to be a few beams, but mostly it has to go because it's really quite debilitated. Because there really isn't a ton more to do on the main farmhouse. We've really done all of the maintenance work. We upgraded the electrical one year, we've upgraded the heating and air management. There have been, there's a hot water improvement, bathroom improvement, so, bathtub removal. So, The downstairs bathroom door is closed by a slide bolt, like, from 100 years ago. So,
We've replaced that.
did you?
Yes.
It's good, because Andy had to break the door down that time. So,
Details, Tammy.
I forgot. So, he did actually, because we had a staff member who had a medical emergency. So, in any case, it may not still be the case. I'm not, making a statement about current conditions. But the sense was that the building, we'd replaced the roof, we had repainted. There's a lot of significant, not structural because the building's structurally sound, but maintenance work that has been done over the past 10 years. And it seemed that the maintenance trust might grow from the rent as opposed to, we've never brought it down to zero over the years. We've been able to keep a nest egg in it at all times, despite having to manage all of the work that has been needed. So, it's not a binary thing where we're going to use all of the maintenance trust or none of the maintenance trust. There is a flow, and it has been pretty healthy, even with that work.
So I will share just from the annual meeting presentation last year, the FY24 projected opening balance is $75,000. The proposed funding is the rent of $23,970. And then we identified a proposed project in FY24, which was the portable office conference room unit of $30,000, and that would leave FY24 ending balance $68,970. So there's a little bit of wiggle room to buy you time if you look to potentially restructure the rent. Doesn't deplete you fully. There's the risk of losing the unit by not acting, but there are certainly some questions that you would like some answers for.
I would like to point out something about this motion, which I always forget, and it's sitting right in front of us. The last clause in this, final lease documents will be submitted to the board for approval. This is not authorizing this is not directing the expenditure, it is authorizing the expenditure for further consideration. So this gives, to approve a lease, blah, 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 means that you can go into it if all the conditions are properly met. The final lease documents will be submitted to the board for approval. Means that you and Andy, Kelly, you're not signing this lease and it's done. There's another step. It will be submitted to the board for approval.
That's a good point.
Or is there some sort of a grace period during which we could
Get
back
out.
out of this
Yeah.
lease because the board doesn't approve? Because within that grace period, we could seek the approval of the SAU for the increase in rent. We could get an answer to the question about lease to own. Everybody's sick.
Everybody.
I'm sorry.
No one didn't say it because of that, because
I know, you're
Kelly
contacting
couldn't
Kelly,
be here.
and I'm sorry she's
Amy
not
couldn't
here,
be
but
here.
she's not a board member, so she can participate electronically without.
So
Absolutely,
interestingly
sure.
enough, as Kelly has said, that it doesn't say directly, but we have the option to renew after 60 months, so it doesn't look like we ever actually own it. We're just paying rent on it.
That's a lot of.
A lot of money for
They
rent.
have to make a profit and their rental, so it's understandable. I just have to say, Carol's already been through this for a number of years. I've been through it 3 times as long. The issue of space in the offices for the staff of the SAU is, I have understated the problem.
No,
I think we're all in agreement.
We're
all in
that
agreement
more
on
space
that.
is needed.
Absolutely. We're just trying to be
this
responsible as
motion
far as
be-
could we be putting ourselves in a bad situation?
Could we add a little more to go with it at the same time as doing better, clarifying some of the due diligence issues?
So I think we could simply table it for another month, and you
Okay.
can identify all the questions, because I don't think we want to act until you can hear the responses to the questions that you still have.
Okay,
Does that
because
make sense?
$2,800 a month times 12 months, I mean, that's.
33,600.
Yeah, it's a bunch of dough. That's half of the balance that you mentioned from last March's warrant.
Yeah, and the annual rent on the building is only 23,970. So
Right,
it's
so
you
you're
know you're
definitely
dealing with
sliding back.
10,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're quite in the red.
Deficit every
10.3.
year.
So could we ask the policy committee to bring forward the rental
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
for, because
don't
we don't
have
have
enough
enough policies on the agenda.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
You mentioned like the total purchase price. Would there be an option to purchase rather than?
Right. It just doesn't, the math doesn't seem to make sense if I'm
It really
spending
doesn't.
$198,000 to walk away with
I do
nothing.
think that you're also not asking,
Yeah.
how do you get rid of it if you own it? These are tin cans and you want somebody to come haul it away. There's probably a very significant cost, and I bet it's about $30,000, which is their profit
Probably
margin,
sell
right?
it.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's
no, I
not
agree.
without some cost to be rid of it if you change your mind or have other plans after 5 years.
Well-
But like you say, I mean, if we wanted to make it extra classrooms and we wanted to haul it over to
That's what I was
to
gonna
this
say.
building, there's gonna be a cost there. It's not just this isn't the
Right.
only money.
Yeah, well, I mean, I look at it as, I haven't decided how I feel about it, I'm just kind of musing on this, but if it could be 2 classrooms and we're dealing right now with grade level, having every classroom in a grade level being over our district limits, we have Paula and Candy, our principals, looking into solutions of how to address that. A portable is a main level, so you could put first graders in it.
Right.
You know, so I'm not, I don't know I don't know that I want to say let's try to spend $167,000 right now, but I don't think that's unreasonable
But that would be
to.
a bond. We're not talking about doing.
Correct,
That's
correct.
not
That's what I'm
something-
saying. No,
that's
we're
a-
not doing that, but I'm talking
that's a big
about it
bite,
being,
excuse me.
the opportunity for it. If we're the owner or the lessee, we can transfer it to the district's needs rather than having it be part of the SAU's needs if something changes, and then put the rent back if we had made any changes. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't 190. What was like 190,000 over the 5 years.
Versus 167 as a to me it sounds like you just buy it, but we don't have $167,000
Yeah, I mean, that's where they get you, right?
to purchase it, but I do think, thank you.
And I feel bad because I'm sure Kelly has looked
Taking yours
into
to read.
a lot of options. I'm certain she has, and I'm certain she's presenting to us the best that she could find. So I feel very badly about us tabling this and possibly losing it, but at the same time,
No, I
you
feel
know,
worse
people-
even suggesting tabling it because I understand that, but as we're talking about it, more questions are coming up, and I think it makes sense to do our due diligence
Yeah.
for this kind of investment.
we just need
Because
to.
as you point out, that warrant article, it didn't include the monthly fee.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
that adds up.
What is the square footage of the new unit? Do you have
52 by what?
Wait.
28
Oh,
by
there it
52.
is.
so
Yeah.
3 times 5, 1,500 feet,
So-
square feet.
Does this mean this will be discussed at the governing board?
Probably eventually, there's some water carrying between the Brookline board and the co-op board, and then discussion at the SAU level. Because each district will have the right to vote on whether they want to sort of pay an increase in rent kind of thing. It's just a courtesy thing that prevents a problem.
Yeah.
So it's time consuming.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how does that work? Does the Hollis district say, we're gonna raise it to this, and then everybody else has to vote on whether they
Yes.
agree to that?
Yeah.
But
That's what is
before we do
different.
that, we'd probably wanna just talk to them and be like, how do you feel?
That's what I'm saying.
How
There's a
about
lot
this?
of
Right.
water
Is it-
carrying.
Yeah.
That's right.
okay.
The rationale.
So
the
nothing is very
explanation.
quick.
Yeah, we don't wanna like just surprise people and
Well,
okay.
the rent increase
We
is
don't wanna be stuck.
unrelated to, is not directly related to the decision on this. We can do whatever we want with respect to Hollis, and then that's separate from raising the rent. I'm just saying
Yeah.
they're two separate things we have to think about.
So
If you're saying that we can only do this if we raise the rent to meet the need, then that's linking it in a way it isn't currently, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just board level discussion. but it isn't currently linked up that way.
So we do have to take a vote on this motion,
Or we can table it.
or we can table it. So,
Or I think withdrawing it wouldn't make sense since it's on the agenda. I think tabling it would be the most,
okay,
We move to
the
table it.
best record keeping.
somebody can move to table.
I move to table until we can answer questions regarding lease to own and whether or not we would be able to increase our property rental to the SAU.
Anybody second?
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Tam.
Thank you.
Okay. Item is tabled. Thanks for the
Okay.
discussion. And thanks to Kelly for chiming in remotely.
Absolutely.
That's really
Yeah.
helpful. All right, moving on to our next item on the
Wait,
agenda.
you have a motion, so you have to take.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right. It's a motion
Oh.
table. It's a motion. It's
I
not just a
know.
declaration. All right. I will. All in favor of tabling the motion.
Thank you.
400. Thanks for the reminder.
All right.
Keeping you honest.
Your battery's better than mine. I think my computer's older. It's like, so I'm gonna look over your shoulder. if
That's
you don't
fine.
mind.
So we're transitioning it to one of the first graders where it's not. Really
Give it to them now.
Oh, boy.
All right, moving on to our next
All right.
item. We're moving into some of our policies. To see what action the board will take regarding policy EB, Workplace Safety Program and Joint Loss Management Committee. The first reading was August 2nd, 2023, approved as amended. The second reading was September 6th, 2023, and given its third reading. There are notes if anybody needed to review.
I should probably make the motion first, am I correct? Okay, so
Yes.
first I'm going to make a motion to accept the third reading and adopt policy EB, Workplace Safety Program and Joint Loss Management Committee motion.
Motion seconded.
Yeah. You need to say second, that's all you have to say.
Second.
Yeah.
Second.
Now we'll discuss.
Okay.
Discussion.
So, this is gonna be the easiest one. There have been no changes. There weren't any concerns, in our September meeting, so I would suggest that we just go ahead and move to adopt the third reading.
I agree.
Anything?
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Excellent. All right, seeing no further discussion, I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Ooh, check.
All right, our next item, to see what the action the board will take regarding policy JLCJA, Emergency Plan for Sports-Related Injuries. Its first reading was accepted on December 7th, 2022. Second reading was September 6th, 2023. It's up for third reading.
Okay, so.
Third reading and adopt, yes.
Motion for the third reading and to adopt JLCJA, Emergency Plan for Sports-Related Injuries and Additional Protocols for Athletics Participation.
Second.
Discussion.
Okay. There were a few concerns that were brought up on JLCJA. If you look at the notes, we've addressed concerns. I don't think anything else was emailed to us further. The version that's in front of you has been cleaned up, so it's easier to read. But if anyone has any questions on what's there, I'm happy to answer them.
Any other
No
discussions? Okay, we can go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Thank you.
Crushing the policies tonight, guys. All right, our next one is to see what action the board will take regarding policy JLCF Wellness. First reading was September 6th, 2023, accepted as amended.
Okay, I move to amend policy JLCF Wellness in its entirety by replacing it with the copy provided with the agenda and accept the second reading as amended.
Can I point out a typo in the word risk, which are believed to minimize it says rish instead of risk.
Noted, risk is misspelled in the proposed amendment. Some spacing issues require addressing is in the notes.
Okay.
So it looks like we've identified that one, so that will be fixed before the third reading. This one, there were a few concerns raised. You'll see that some of Tammy's concerns in the first paragraph have been addressed. As it is right now, also member Kellner, or Chair Kellner, emailed me some questions. I am happy to go through the questions that she had.
I pulled them up too.
Okay, so I'll just kind of go through. I have a document here with comments of what she was asking. So, for example, in section 2C, she was asking when we would see the first triennial progress assessment. It's going to be 3 years after the policies are adopted. So, if the policy is adopted this year, 3 years hence. Next, she had asked in section 3D, in the second to last paragraph, there are references to Appendix A. She wanted to know if this was an appendix to this policy or to the USDA standards, and we were looking for this during our policy meeting, and we couldn't find that at the time. Gina, were you able to figure out which appendix that was?
In which section was that?
Yep.
In section 3D, it says in that first paragraph, see Appendix A, which may be accessed data. And we went to that site and we were unable to find it at that time during our policy meeting.
So Appendix A is actually this chart on the second to last page. I'm not sure why it's called Appendix A, and it probably should just be renamed.
Okay, so we'll just make sure that that's
The
clear.
nutrient snack entree portion?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So will we continue to call it Appendix A, or do you think
No,
we'll rename
we
it?
should bring
it.
that back to policy and fix that up before we adopt it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go, if you don't mind bearing with me a moment, I'm just gonna make a note of that.
And I think I have a couple additional questions from Amy that are different than the feedback that you have in hand already.
Okay,
Was that in section D?
yes, section 3D, yes.
Competitive food and beverages and marketing of
Thank you.
same in schools.
Yes. All right, thank you for that, Gina. Next, she was wondering, in section 3G, food sale fundraising. How does this affect the bake sale at the Halloween Fun Fair, for example? Does every item have to be approved by the Director of School Nutrition? Is that, who is involved in that? It will not, because those situations with the bake sale, the Halloween Fun Fair, et cetera, are after the school day, and they're not a school-sponsored event.
It
They're
says in
PTA
that first
events.
line during the school day, right? So,
Yeah. So those things will not be affected. Next, she was wondering about the following section in nutrition promotion. Curious about how the adoption of this policy would change our food offerings, or would it create additional work for our staff? And their answer is no, it would not change anything. We actually went through, it says, these requirements. There's a bullet point that says implementation of at least 5 or more evidence-based healthy food promotion techniques needed to be in the school program. And I actually asked the principals, let's go through this and just see how many of these are already in place. It was
Oh, we do very.
over 5. It was nearly every single bullet point, so this will not change.
And also it says examples are.
Exactly. So those are options, 5 within those options, and it seems like we're right on target with all that. Let me see were there any more, and that concludes what Amy had sent to me.
I think she also mentioned that it's missing its category. Is it required? Is it recommended?
It's a category. What do you mean
At the
by
top
that?
it would say
At the top it would say-
JLCF, and then it would say so yours says category
Mine says
P,
category
but mine
P.
does not.
Mine doesn't either.
So can you check
We
and make sure
will
that
make
whatever we have
sure
has the
that
category?
that is added to the official.
It is required in order for us to participate in the lunch program. P means priority required by law, but we'll add that.
Perfect. Thanks.
Is that all you had, Carol, or?
We overlapped with those. That was the only one that I think wasn't mentioned.
I'm just concerned about the annual notification requirement. Is that gonna be like in the student handbook? I'm sorry, I'm talking out of turn. 2B, section 2, item B, annual notification. So that gets accomplished, I guess, through the student handbook type of thing?
So,
It says SAU will annually inform families and the public of basic information about this policy. It says annual.
so in registration, we send a link to the
Okay.
policies.
I'm so sorry, I know we have so much to do today, but,
You're good.
No, it's okay. You did your
section
homework. Thank you.
3, nutrition.
Mhm.
Those 5 bullet points, okay? Food-mediated illnesses, anywhere from type 2 diabetes to food allergies to Crohn's disease to myriad other food-mediated illnesses. This policy is stating that we will provide food that is accessible, depends on the definition of accessible, to every kind of student who pays for lunch. That is not possible. It is not possible. You cannot feed my son. He has too many food allergies. He never ate in these buildings at all from the cafeteria. It's not the school's fault. It's not the school's responsibility. My son has a medical issue. So if we're promising in the policy that all meals that are accessible to all students, we cannot meet that promise. It just has to be said. So either accessible means physically accessible, like wheelchair ramps accessible, or it means that the food itself is edible, and that's not possible for lots of people who have, for example, feeding tubes they can't eat at all. And we do have students like that here. We have had them in the past, and I don't know if we do right now. I'm not privy to that kind of information, obviously, but we can't make statements like that. I was going to suggest, if possible, the final bullet item says meet or exceed current nutrition requirements established by local, state, federal, blah, 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 that would go to the top of the list and that are accessible to all students be deleted. That's a suggestion I had.
Can we do
I was just gonna say, can we legally?
So I'm going to reach out to legal on the request to strike through that. I absolutely hear what you're saying, and it's
Because
valid.
even more than the medical diagnoses,
Yep.
students can have food aversions. I don't like this.
Yep.
We've just promised that we're going to make food accessible to all students that aren't accessible.
Sure.
Okay. And by the way, this continues into college. You should see the parent pages and the students who go on strike for what's served at the dining halls, even when it's lasagna and baked cod and all that stuff. So,
We had great food in our dining hall in
my
college.
kid is eating like a king. I certainly can't cook like that.
That's a really
Okay,
good point, Tammy. Thank you.
So item D,
Are you still under 3?
yeah, 3D, competitive foods, beverages, marketing of same in schools. I wrote all chips and ice cream. So I'm just curious if this section covers our offerings of potato chips and ice cream and things like that. Those things, the way this language sounds to my ear, I don't know that what my kids haven't been at Hughes in years, but had access to would not be allowed as, the chips and the ice cream Fridays and that kind of thing.
So this refers to, you're not necessarily going to see it here so much, but maybe in these small business programs, at Hughes, competitive food and beverages, competitive to the meal program. So, as the class advisor, we couldn't have a fundraiser where we're selling,
Gill's Pizza?
yes, something that's a competitor to what we offer for lunch.
I misunderstood entirely. Excellent, very good. Okay, item E, celebrations
Even if
and
they're not selling it
rewards.
at lunch,
I hope
sorry.
you're sitting-
Even if they're not selling it at lunch? That is the weirdest
It's a
thing.
federal,
Yeah.
it's a federal lunch program.
In other states, it's the same as well. Yeah.
Okay, item E. I wonder, did we write this?
We wrote it, but when we revised it this time, it was pretty much straight from the sample policy.
Is it state or federal guidelines, laws that say no celebratory foods in the classrooms? So in this very room, all those years ago, when my 19-year-old was 2, it was not funny. We had a widely beloved parent, widely beloved PTA mom, wonderful one, advocating through a series of school board hosted food allergy public forums, because this was the rise of the epidemic. When my kid was in these schools, we had fewer than 100 kids in his grade. 10 of them had just peanut allergies, let alone the other foods. 10%, more than 10%. It was very significant. This particular parent had a child who could not have physical contact with that child's allergen without ending up in the emergency room. And the school district, the school nurse asked the board to please create policy to help the nurse and the teachers navigate this new bedevilment. And parents who had children who are older than mine, sitting through these forums, public forums, offering their very private experiences and asking for some kind of accommodations that would protect their children. A handful of parents arrived at the final forum and stood up and shouted that we were not taking birthday cupcakes away from their children's classrooms. That was just not going to happen.
They don't exist anymore.
I
They've
think
been gone
COVID
for
has
several years.
changed- COVID has changed everything. I
Even
think.
even before COVID, you weren't doing that.
Seriously.
It's been years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
So this
forever.
isn't something new. And then the Valentine's Day non-edibles.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah, it's been gone for a long time.
I'm so sorry about,
And then
it was so traumatic for me. I only had a 2-year-old, but it was so traumatizing. And this woman was just in tears, it will kill my kid, you know, it
Yeah.
was just horrible.
Nope. And then there were, when we could, in instances where outside food could be brought in, it wasn't homemade. It had
Yeah.
to be packaged and
Store
purchased,
bought.
packaged and sealed and everything, and reviewed by the nurse before it could go into a classroom. Yeah.
Exceptional. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful, and I apologize for taking your time.
No, don't
No,
apologize.
don't.
It's huge, and it's
worthwhile
something that you don't
Yeah.
have
for the
insight
public
to.
to hear as well.
Well,
so.
my kids would come home and be like, "Oh, guess what we learned today? We learned how to protect our classmate from their allergen and how to clean up our stations
that's just
and
incredible.
all that stuff." It's just integrated into how they are now, which
So
is
grateful,
amazing.
so grateful.
Mm-hmm.
I'll rush through the next one, not to override what you're saying, but because I know I'm taking a lot of time. Item
you're
F, food is allowed for an event that's tied to curriculum or special event. Prior approval from the principal and school nurse is needed. I would like to ask that we add comma, and advance notice to families is provided. Again, I had the experience K through 12, despite a 504 plan that was explicitly built around his food safety, wherein I did not ask for veto power, just advance notice. We had an incident in high school where a cultural event was planned. He was told, the teacher did what they were supposed to do, but my kid has other medically diagnosed issues that prevented me from finding out. And was not able to moderate his own behavior, was not able to inform me through whatever. And the 504 plan had explicitly asked that I be notified. It was not a big deal. Teacher and I worked it out. It's no big deal. But I need kids with food-mediated illnesses, their families need to know, especially in the elementary school level. And I know you want this to be an SAU-wide document, especially at the primary school level and the elementary school level. The families need to be notified when there's going to be a food event. And specifically because this is talking about curriculum tied to curriculum. So now we're ADA compliant, IDEA. The child has a medically diagnosed disability, identified disability related to food. So if it's going to be tied to curriculum and there's going to be food, I love what you said about approval for the nurse, et cetera. I would like that the families have to be, the
Very
guardian has
reasonable.
to be notified
It could be
in
in a
advance. No,
newsletter.
without any specific time span.
I've seen that in the newsletters from teachers informing everybody who's
Right.
receiving the notice, but I wonder if, are you asking it to
I'm
be
asking it to be in
formalized
policy rather
from
than,
just practice?
rather than case-by-case basis, because there are so many kids who have these food-driven issues. And it is just really, really incredibly difficult to manage when it's sprung on you the morning of or
Understood.
after the fact.
So is that one you can have
That's just a suggestion I'd
during
like to
review as well, or
ask.
does that not need it during review?
Well, I think the
Just
question really is
add
what, in advance notice to families is provided, what does that look like? Food will be brought in for this cultural event. Is that the notice? Or is
So-
the notice these specific items? Because I just am concerned that if they're, let's say, field day, and someone, I don't know what we have on field day, but I'm imagining maybe like popsicles.
Hot dogs and popsicles.
Yeah, okay,
We
so-
were notified in the newsletter that there
But
would
were
be
you
hot
notified of
dogs.
like the specific brand and the type? I'm
No,
wondering
that's
if-
not-
No,
that's
but I
not
think that
possible.
as a
That's just
parent,
not
I think as
possible.
a parent,
The
I
fact
could
that
see
there is
that
going
and
to
call
be a
if
food
I were
event.
concerned.
I would just say an email.
Okay.
The fact that there's going to be food is
Okay.
what I would
Mm-hmm. Then it should be on the
because
parent to
it could be a, I mean, there are so
Absolutely.
many different food-mediated illnesses, you could not possibly exhaustively, even I could not meet them all with my obsession with it. So I was just asking for some notification that there would be a food-based event, curriculum related. See, field day is not curriculum related, is it? Isn't that just a PTA party?
Well, it's,
No.
it's phys ed.
Is
It's
it,
phys
is it
ed.
Yeah.
explicitly out of the physical education
And
curriculum?
it's during the school day.
Yeah.
So
All of the
it's-
activities are planned by the physical
And
education.
there's always going to be the watermelons and the mile walk. Do we still do that? There used to be a walk around the buildings and then there was watermelon. So just as long as the families are notified that there will be food at the event.
Okay.
And then each family can ask or not ask, do what they need to do to respond to that knowledge. But just being left out because now you have to sit at the nurse's office because you didn't tell mom and you, it should,
Yeah.
Could we say that the advance notice is of the event, just so that we don't have someone later saying, well, there was supposed to be advance notice, I should have been told what was being served,
no.
to your point, but just so we would, if we're gonna put in specific language, put in the specific that notice of the event
Right.
to parents, so that it's not interpreted differently.
Right,
Do you
not at
see
the
what I'm
menu.
saying?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. Whatever
Um,
language you think, I just
Okay,
wanted
so
to ask for
we'll
that.
make sure we work that out and we
If it's
get that
possible
in
to do that.
before the third reading, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And those are all my notes on that one.
Any other feedback on the wellness policy or discussion around it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. So this is
Second.
for second reading. So I'll take a vote now. Approve second reading. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good discussion.
Okay.
And yes, it has come very far, Tammy, with
Amazing.
acceptance of it, which is awesome. The kids, it's second nature to them to
I can't wait till this
Pay
generation's in
attention.
charge, I'm telling you. I won't be here, but still.
All right, our next item on the agenda is to see what action the board will take regarding policy AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity employment, and district anti-discrimination plan. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept this first reading of policy AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity employment, and district anti-discrimination plan as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
Did you want me to speak to this?
I was just gonna say, I did ask everyone to do their homework.
I actually
And to
appreciated
read.
that very much.
So that this isn't everybody's first reading.
Okay.
So, yes, you're welcome to.
All
Go
right.
for it.
So we reviewed this not too long ago, 2022, with the addition of the anti-discrimination plan. It's coming before you again today because we are removing essentially the timeline that's outdated in section F. And you'll see that all of that information is contained in the next 4 policies. So with advice of district council, we've been asked to make this amendment to this policy and then adopt the next 4.
Makes sense.
So we also updated the policies that are referenced in the top line, just because the hope is that we will move forward with those policies.
Yep.
And for anybody listening at home, these were written by legal, and so we have on good authority that these are well written and thought out.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
I will, just add that we will look to do a second, waive the third, and adopt all 5 of these policies. Brookline did a first and adopt to have it in place right away, but for Hollis and Co-op, for these policies, I'm just looking for a waive the third, but go through 2 readings, because there's so much content.
Do you expect it'll come to us at our next board meeting to
Yes.
get that in place? Perfect. Thanks. All right. Thank you for your vote, everybody. Moving on to our next item, to see what action the board will take regarding policy ACAA, harassment and sexual harassment of students. So it's first reading.
And I move to accept this first reading of policy ACAA, harassment and sexual harassment of students.
Second.
Okay, so there, is a policy that next month, when we move to go second and adopt, we will also rescind older outdated policies that are identified in the student section, and then for the next policy we talk about in the employee section. This, by putting it in in section A, it really makes it more foundational in the forefront about our policies in the way we address sexual harassment. So it really makes it stronger and makes a statement there. This really is just identifies definitions of all of these, sexual harassment, other forms, and reports and complaints. We will see in the next one, it's very lengthy, it's all the procedures related to filing a complaint and the legal requirements of the district.
Thank you for that discussion.
I have a really giant issue.
Yep.
After having worked on these policies for years and now this whole slew of them, reading them in the mind framework of what has transpired over the last number of years, last 3 or 4 or 5 years with respect to Me Too, et cetera, that I don't know what the definition of sexual is if a person is grooming you, shoving you emotionally, shoving you psychically, but isn't laying a hand on you. This does not protect, from my reading, right, because I don't know, I don't understand. This does not protect an individual from being coerced without the word, in ways that are not overtly sexual. Even the harassment part, if you look at the definition of harassment, it says harassment, oral, written, graphic, electronic, or physical conduct relating to an individual's actual or perceived, this is A3, actual or perceived membership in a protected category that is sufficiently severe, pervasive, or persistent so as to interfere with or limit that individual's ability to participate in the school district's programs or activities by creating a hostile, intimidating, or offensive environment. It's perfect, it's all encompassing, except that somehow I can see.
Where are you?
Which
You're
policy
on
is that?
you're on ACAA.
Oh, I beg your pardon, am I on the wrong one?
Yes, we are on ACAA right now.
Well, that's what I thought. Oh,
It is
I
very
clicked the
confusing.
wrong one.
It
Okay.
is. Yes.
I was like, my
but to your-
copy doesn't have
But
that.
to your point,
But
Tammy,
to my point, because
Yeah.
it's the same point, because it's in all of them, okay? Does that, I'm just asking the question. Suppose I am an employee, and I am, in fact, by anybody's definition, being harassed, pushed, but not through physical contact, not through sexual content, but that other thing, there are all these other dynamics that can drive a person, that can be very damaging, very harmful, very victim creating, but I don't see them defined here. Are we comfortable that definition covers that sort of behavior?
so this definition is
that I just read, even if it's
from the law. However, hostile environment is where that would be a little bit more all-encompassing. But this policy is specific for sexual harassment, but that
I
would
guess
still.
I'm concerned about the protected groups part. It's, from the protected status. Is a female a protected status? Is a male a protected status? You know what I'm asking? I'm sorry,
Harassment
I
of
mixed them
students
up,
based on
but they are
age,
in-
sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, race, creed, color, ancestry,
So if
or national
somebody
origin,
is-
marital status, familial status, physical or mental disability, religion or economic status.
Right, so I am a female, and a male is messing with me in a way that I feel really under attack. I'm very, very, it's a hostile environment, but where am I protected? Where's my protected
Well,
status?
there is that, but it's not limited to.
I just
So
want to make
if
sure.
you can
I'm not
demonstrate that the
actually-
reason the harassment is occurring is because you are female and the harasser is male, or vice versa, that the male is being harassed
Right, sure,
because of the
absolutely.
fact that he's a male, then it does fall
What
under
if
this
I
category.
the only thing I can demonstrate is that I'm being harassed because I had a stalker. I've been through this. Thank you, Hollis Police. There was nothing that you could
pinpoint?
I was the target, not because I was, I mean, you could argue that the person was heterosexual and therefore, but that's not covered here.
Right, so there's also hostile work environment, there are other
So you're
behaviors.
confident this covers the edge cases, the shadow behaviors, the gaslighting behaviors, the hard to put your finger on behaviors? Because that's where a lot of that grooming happens.
Yes, but this policy is really just focused on sexual harassment and how it is defined legally. We'd have to take a look at all of our other policies, but what you're describing wouldn't fall here. It would fall under hostile work environment.
Okay,
If it was in
okay.
fact in the workplace.
Okay, you're comfortable that what this is covering
And a
needs to be
student is
just-
covered
yeah,
by
what about
hostile
it?
work environment?
Well,
Well,
no,
there's
but
also a
There's a
student
separate
one.
policy.
There's also, there are 5 here, and that's fine. There's one for students, there's one for employees. And
Right,
there's
I'm
this-
just making sure.
Yeah, and so this stems from, if you recall, Superintendent Corey was talking about our leadership retreat this year was focused all on Title IX harassment, sexual harassment, bullying. And then we continued that training with all of our attorneys for 3 days of additional training. And then we're doing workshops with them, and we're revamping and reviewing our log entries for any incidents and making sure that we're in line with the law and with procedures. We're going to adopt these, but they're expected to come out later this month, new rules regarding procedures around these investigations. And then following that, however many months it'll take, there will be new timelines issued with guidance asking us to then amend certain aspects of the regulation, not the actual policy, but the regulation. So this topic isn't going away.
Okay.
We're going to continue to work
Okay.
through it, but this is right now, our legal counsel said,
Get these
you
on the
need
books.
to get this
Okay.
adopted.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say that I share your concern because I know exactly what you're talking about. I've experienced it myself, and yeah, it would make me feel better to know that it's included somewhere, like you said.
I'll make myself a note.
All right, seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the first reading of policy ACAA?
Thank you.
All right, to see what action the board will take regarding ACAA-R, student discrimination, harassment, and Title IX, sexual harassment complaint procedures.
I move to accept the first reading of ACAAR, student discrimination, harassment, and Title IX sexual harassment complaint procedures.
Second.
Okay, so as I mentioned, this is simply the procedures that go along with the policy that you just adopted or approved for first reading. So it identifies who to go to, it provides definitions, gives you definitions of procedures. It also really outlines why, if there's a Title IX investigation, it is going to take 60 days to complete it legally, because there's fact-finding, and then there's the requirement to provide the facts to both parties, allow for additional, questions and feedback. So it's not that we're not doing our job. We are doing our job by following the legally required 60-day timeline for these investigations.
And it does give you room to take protective action in the meantime.
Yes.
So that's there's just a grammar question on
Sure.
section 3, not then subsection A, item 1. School employees who have reason to believe that a student has been subjected to sexual harassment is required, and I guess that should be part of it.
Yeah, there was.
3A1.
And then 3A3, item A, 3A3, if the individual making the report is the alleged victim, or if the alleged victim is identified by the individual making the report, the HRO Title IX coordinator will meet with the alleged victim to discuss supportive measures that may be appropriate in the particular circumstances and explain the process for filing a formal complaint. This is about students, right? We are a primary elementary school. That's not possible that they wouldn't, there's no mention of guardians. We can't discuss with a 9-year-old what protective measures the 9-year-old wants without guardians. So,
Agree.
I'm really
Catch.
missing the role of guardians.
Well, they're mentioned in item 2.
Students, parents.
So this says supportive if the individual making the report is the alleged victim, the HRO will meet with the alleged victim to discuss supportive measures that may be appropriate in the particular circumstances and explain the process for filing a formal complaint. Sorry, that's not acceptable for an elementary school. That language has to be.
It has to include the legal, the parents,
Somebody
guardians.
has to address that.
I will reach out to legal counsel,
Please.
but I was told not to accept any amendments to the policy.
I would like clarification then.
Okay.
I'm not
Absolutely.
I'm not moving to make an amendment.
Fair
I'm
enough.
asking for
Okay.
clarification.
Yeah, that's a deep concern of mine on this one as well, when we're talking about 6-year-olds.
And I can understand that there is legal thinking that answers the question, but
Yeah.
But the parents and families in this community that are gonna read this policy and use it as what they follow and know to be the policy, they don't have that legal background,
so if we have
so
it on
has to be
record
there.
next meeting that you can clarify for us, and that will allow us to reference for parents.
Yep.
And then 3B, section 3B, how to make a formal complaint 1. I have the same concern. An alleged student, victim, and/or parent legal guardian may file a formal written complaint requesting, I guess there it says or legal guardian, so I guess I guess that's covered there.
So I guess then, but on the second paragraph, it mentions only students who need assistance in preparing a formal complaint. Would that also be the parents and guardians included in that
I
offer?
would just like that question responded to by legal if we could. I would appreciate that.
Mhm.
And then down here with E.
You said G?
Yeah, if you scroll all the way down, G, determination of responsibility.
Mhm.
I have a question around item 4E under section G.
You mean 5E?
5E, okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So this section is determination of responsibility. So, 5, the decision maker shall issue a written determination which shall include the following. And the decision maker, this has to do with responding to, responding to the complaint. So item 5E says, 5 says the decision maker shall issue a written determination which shall include the following. And then item E says the school district's appeal procedure and permissible bases for the parties to appeal the determination. So I know that in all of these documents on this topic, there's an appeal procedure that's listed. It never mentions the school board, and yet, now I've lost track and I'm so sorry. Is the school board ever engaged in
Not in
an
this.
appeal procedure for any of these things?
Not for Title IX.
Okay, great, thank you for that clarification. Not for Title IX. Okay. And then item 10, okay, good, thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Sure. Any other discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote on accepting the first reading of ACAA-R. All in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks for all the good commentary, everybody. This is
Yeah,
super
those-
important to have.
Those were some really great catches.
Yeah, very good catches.
To see what action, our next item, to see what action the board will take regarding policy ACAB, harassment and sexual harassment of school employees.
I move to accept the first reading of policy ACAB, harassment and sexual harassment of school employees.
Second.
So again, employees don't have, don't turn to the board for any hearing procedures under,
Title IX.
excellent, okay, that's good to know.
Can I just ask a quick question? This is encompassing the last several that we've been looking at. Did these just never exist as policies?
Okay, so we had, and I'd have to look at the Brookline one because they did the first and then they rescinded the other ones. I think it was GBAA and JBAA. We did have harassment and sexual harassment of school employees, and then for students, J is students, G is employees. Like I said, once these are adopted, I will ask to rescind those older ones.
Okay.
So we had them. These are just updated with definitions that are current today, including all classifications, et cetera. And the request was made to move them to Section A to make them more profound.
And the procedures are also a little bit.
The procedures-
tighter, very specific.
Yeah, so the procedures all changed in 2020, and like I said, they're expected to change this month. And we will amend as we need to. At the end of the day, we're going to follow the legal timelines that are in place, but we will certainly bring these back to you as soon as we are provided those new timelines.
Excellent, thank you for that. Any discussion? Seeing none? All in favor of accepting the first reading of policy ACAB?
Thank you.
Next item, to see what action the board will take regarding ACAB-R, employee discrimination / harassment, and Title IX, sexual harassment complaint procedures.
And I'll move to accept the first reading of ACAB-R, employee discrimination, harassment, and Title IX sexual harassment complaint procedures.
Second?
Discussion. Any?
So it's really the same
A lot of the
policy
same
as
stuff.
ACAA-R, however, this refers to employees. So we shouldn't have an issue with parents or guardians.
If we do, it's an entirely different thing. All right, seeing no more discussion, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of accepting the first reading of ACAB-R?
Thank you.
400. That concludes our policy review. We are in need of a short.
Atta girl, you
Done.
guys.
Very, very, very good comments. Thank you.
Such good work.
Absolutely. So we are in need of a short non-public, and we will adjourn the meeting as soon as the conclusion of that occurs. So I will accept a motion to put us into non-public.
So I move the board by roll call go into non-public
do.
session
That's
pursuant of
got it.
RSA 91-3:3, Roman numeral 2, parentheses A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, and C, to discuss a matter which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of the body or agency itself.
Second?
Second.
So it's roll call.
Yep, that is a roll call vote.
Tammy, aye.
And I.
Andrea, aye.
Carol Roy, aye. We are now moving into a non-public session at 8:47 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your work. We will step down to the conference room.
All right.